Oh, give me a moment. I've got to find my opening script. I forgot.
Mayor Collier, we are now live.
Madam Clerk, I need just a moment.
Mayor Collier, we are now live.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. This meeting of Ajax Council is being held electronically and live streamed on the town's website. All members of council in attendance are participating by audio and video teleconference, and town staff are available throughout the meeting if council members have any questions on the agenda. For members of the public watching from home, please bear with us if we encounter any technical difficulties throughout the meeting. I'll now call this meeting to order. I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement. We'll begin by acknowledging that the land in which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Does any member of council have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? No, all good. Moving down to the minutes, I have moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Khan. Let's pull this up. That the following minutes of previous council meetings be adopted. The regular meeting of May 16th, 2022, the special meeting of May 24th, 2022, and the closed session meeting of May 24th, 2022. Any questions, comments, errors, and omissions on any of the minutes? Nope. Those in favor of approval? Any opposed? Nope, that is carried. Moving on to Madam Clerk, has any member of the public submitted any questions under question period for tonight?
No, Mr. Mayor, no questions submitted.
Okay, move right on to delegations and presentations. The first delegation, Longest Day of Smiles, Candy Kylor, I hope I said that correctly, Operation Smile Canada. Is Candy with us?
Yes, I am. I'm here. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready, please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, wonderful. If you could have the presenter start the video for to allow our video to be shown. I think we've had our video shut off.
Just one moment.
Yes, for both myself and Michael Gross, please. Thank you.
There you go. You should be good to go.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So Mayor Collier, councillors, thank you so much for having us. And thank you to the citizens of Ajax for your support. Operation Smile Canada is really just thrilled to be here. I'm Candy Keeler, the Community Engagement Specialist. I'm joined by my colleague, Michael Gross, who is our Smile Partner Specialist. And we're here today to tell you a little bit more about the Longest Day of Smiles. If you could go to the next slide, please. So the Longest Day of Smiles is truly a celebration of all of the Canadians from coast to coast who represent the work that we do. These are our students, our medical volunteers, and our Smile ambassadors. Every day, they're committed to the individuals in their communities to showing us what it truly means to give back. We're celebrating the achievements of these individuals and communities who have helped raise funds and awareness so waiting children can receive a new smile. Next slide, please.
we went a little too far. So Operation Smile Canada is part of the largest volunteer-based medical charity providing free cleft surgery for children. We're an interdisciplinary team that is committed to providing safe surgery and comprehensive cleft care, as well as providing training to local medical professionals to increase local capacity. We believe that all children deserve to live with dignity, and for those born with a cleft lip, cleft palate, and other facial differences, dignity begins with a smile. Many of these children have never seen a doctor before. Most simply cannot access or afford the care they need. And with help from donors, medical volunteers, and corporate partners, we transform the lives with surgeries that can take as little as 45 minutes and cost as little as $240. As an Ajax resident myself, I am so proud to share that our community has a lifetime giving of $328,000 to helping children born with cleft conditions. This means 1,367 children are smiling because of this community. And to learn more information, please visit us at operationsmile.ca. Next slide, please.
So as Michael shared with us, so many communities have gotten behind the longest day of smiles. And for that, we are truly grateful because we all know it feels great to smile, but it feels even better to make somebody else smile. And that's what the Smile movement is all about. So for communities across Canada, yesterday was the longest day of smiles. They celebrated by hosting local smile celebrations, by posting on social media, and by donating in support of this incredible charitable effort to help children who are born with cleft conditions receive a new smile. Next slide, please. What this looks like in every community is different, but we want to highlight a couple of examples that have really, truly just sort of captured our imaginations and our hearts. One was a community who was a speech and language therapy clinic and a strength and fitness community who came together and they formed a team called A2 Zazo. They raised over $4,000 while getting fit and having fun. One of the other Smile ambassadors that we're going to showcase is on the next slide. And these ones are going to capture your hearts as well as mine. And these are the Junior Smile Ambassadors for Operation Smile Canada. This is a group of elementary school students led by an incredible teacher, Rob Aguilar. Rob really empowers these children to have a voice and to have a voice for other children. So the Junior Smile Ambassadors are advocating for acceptance because they believe every child deserves to smile. And because of their advocacy and their ABCs of Courage book and their How to Be Brave book sales, in addition to support from other community sponsors, they've raised in the last 4 years over $40,000. Next slide, please. But we can't forget to feature the people who really know what it's like to be born with a cleft condition. Cheryl Standing is one of our Smile ambassadors. She was born with a cleft condition here in Canada and knows how fortunate we are to have such an incredible system. Cheryl recently hiked 500 miles of the Pacific Trail in support of Operation Smile Canada, and she did this by sharing her cleft journey and her passion for hiking. Next slide, please.
Our Smile ambassadors know representation matters, so they have shared their stories across various digital channels to help raise awareness and funds for children born with cleft conditions. And although we have tons of supporters and ambassadors here, one person we like to highlight in the bottom right-hand corner is Adam Bighill. We call him our Smile champion. He is a 3-time Grey Cup champion and is the defensive linebacker for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Adam and his son, Bo, were born with a cleft condition, and he's a champion on and off the field, and he's highly respected within our organization. Next slide, please. We would greatly appreciate if you could follow us on social media and share our posts. Our top 3 platforms are Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we'd be happy if you could use some of the trending hashtags such as Longest Day of Smiles, Operation Smile Canada, and join the Smile movement. Next slide, please.
So as always, we want to welcome you to reach out to us if you have any questions or want to learn how you also can become Smile ambassadors, we can be reached at our toll-free number and our Give Smiles at Operation Smile Canada, operationsmiles.org email address. And I see we have a couple of counselors with hands up, so please feel free, counselors, if you have any questions, we'd be happy to respond to those.
Okay, thank you very much for your delegation. Councillor Lee, I saw you first.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for this presentation. I'm very familiar with the Cleft Palate charity, another charity called Smile Train, which I donated to. I wasn't aware there was a Canadian equivalent. As a result, I'm so glad you guys presented today. I think this charity speaks to me. Obviously, on council, I like to make a lot of jokes. So, but more importantly, I always like the idea that it's a very tangible number that will benefit kids. So I think you guys said $240 from beginning to end that will fix a cleft palate or facial surgery for a kid. And that's for me. There's like no more worthwhile charity to know that it's not some theoretical thing. $240, one extra kid will get the surgery they require. So I just want to say I'm a big fan. Looking forward to supporting and any way we can Operation Smiles. Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. And you're absolutely correct. There is other cleft charities, but Operation Smile Canada has existed 40 years globally. In Canada, we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary. Our first mission began in the Philippines in 1982. And since then, we've done over 326,000 surgeries. We have Canadian medical volunteers that are in the field. But more importantly, not only are they donating their expertise and their time to helping children receive these surgeries, but they're also working to ensure that they're increasing and training the local professionals. So we're increasing local capacity. So Canadians are making an impact, not just for these children, but for the communities in which they're operating. So thank you for sharing your passion and for your support. Thank you. And I believe we had some other questions.
Yeah, Councillor Tyler Moore, and you were next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions to the delegation.
Yeah, no, I understand. I did have my hand up. My question's been answered. Thanks for all the work you do. I too have contributed at some fundraisers for this. Thank you. I'm good. My
Wonderful.
Councillor Bauer, you were next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Lovely. And it's so nice to see those smiles on all those kids. And I believe my mother was involved in this type of work when she was alive, when we were growing up. My question is, how do you find the children, or is it just children? And what's the process?
Councillor Bauer, that is an incredible question. Thank you so much. So Operation Smile Canada funds several initiatives across the world, including comprehensive cleft care centers. So really, on the ground, we have our professionals working with local hospitals, outreach communities. In Guatemala City, for example, they currently have a national registry so that any child that is born with a cleft condition can then be registered and then are brought into the folds of Operation Smile Canada within their local capacity. And once we've identified these children, then we can start to move forward with the initiatives. And then we can schedule surgical intake and outreach to families. I mean, as you can imagine, the pandemic has really sort of changed how we were able to do things, but there have been some considerable positive outcomes. One is which in areas where we're able to do so, we're able to do virtual education for parents on feeding and on cleft care, on increasing community awareness, because often they don't even know that surgery is an option and is available to them. So really, it's more than just surgery. It's really about sort of expanding this repertoire. And Operation Smile Canada has some pretty exciting initiatives coming up for the next decade. We're calling it Love and Leadership, and it's really about taking what Canadians hold true to their heart, which is to give in our time and our expertise and in our talents, and really just make this accessible to children globally. But to speak to your question about, is it just children? No. We have surgeons on the ground who are performing surgeries on adults in communities who are as old as 80 years old. Because we really truly believe that, yes, if this individual had received cleft care in the early stages of their life, they too would have, enjoyed smiling along with their community members. So we leave no one behind.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from members of council? No, seeing none. Thank you very much for your delegation today.
Thank you for having us.
Moving on to our next item. We have 5.2 presentation recognition of local athletes. And
Sorry to interrupt, Mayor Collier. There's actually a proclamation certificate for presentation.
Oh, my apologies. I'm sorry. I went too quickly. Oh my goodness. Are our delegations still here?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Sorry, my mistake. There's a lot on the agenda tonight.
Don't worry.
We do have a proclamation. Corporation Town of Ajax hereby proclaims June 19th, 2022 as Longest Day of Smiles, presented on behalf of myself and Ajax Council today, June 19th, 2022. And now I'll say thank you for your delegation. My apologies, skipped right over that.
Thank you.
And I also skipped over one other thing before I go, and that is let me go back here, motion to suspend the rules of procedure. And I have moved by Councilor Lee, second by Councilor Tyler Moore, and the rules of procedure be suspended to add a delegation as item 5.5, Mr. Randy Vincent, regarding the disposal of Sylvan Drive. This will require 2/3. Those in favor of waiving the rules, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that is carried. Thank you. Now we'll get back to it's hard switching through all these screens. There we go. 5.2 presentation recognition of local athletes, and is Coach Stephen Gillies and goalie Sophie Helfenstein, I hope I said that correctly, on the call, Madam Clerk?
Sophie is in attendance. I'm not sure.
Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi. Is your coach here?
I'm not sure. Was he in attendance?
Mayor Collier, he doesn't seem to be present.
Okay, well, I'll go ahead, even though Coach Gillies can't be here. But I'm very pleased to welcome goalie Sophie Helfenstein. Did I say that right? Helfenstein?
Yeah, that's correct. Helfenstein.
Thank you. And you're an Ajax resident and a member of the Durham West U18 AA hockey team. And I understand the team is made up of players from all over the region. In May, the team went undefeated at the ESO Cup in Alberta to become National Women's U18 champions. And it's the first national title for the Lightning and a major boost for local girls hockey. The team roared through the round robin, winning all 5 games and outscoring opponents 23-10 throughout the tournament. And in the final game, Sophie put on a clinic with a 27 save performance in which you were awarded the MVP of the tournament. It's been an unforgettable year for the team. They only dropped 1 game during the regular season and finished at the top of the U18 AA division with a 21-1-3 record. And you went on to win the OWHA provincial tournament. The town is very proud of the entire team, including the coaching staff and players. You worked very hard to receive the national title. Thank you, Sophie, for representing us so well. And we have a certificate for you that we will present here and provide with you as the actual one after the fact. To Sophie Helfenstein, Durham West Lightning U18 AA, the Corporation Town of Ajax congratulates the 2021-2022 Durham West Lightning U18 AA on winning the 2022 ESO Cup, Canada's National Women's Club Hockey Championship. As Mayor of the Town of Ajax, and on behalf of all members of Council, it gives me great pleasure to congratulate you on your hard work and dedication to the Durham West Lightning team. And yeah, I think we should all give you a big round of applause. Generally, it would be you as a delegate speaking, but here I did all the talking. Did any member of Council have any questions for Sophie while she's here? Councilor Lee.
Sophie, you coming back next year? You got to defend that title, right? Build a dynasty?
Unfortunately, this is only a U18 AA tournament. I am moving on to junior, so I will not have the chance to participate again next year.
Well, I'm sure you're going to kick ass at the juniors, so best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other member of council? Okay, well, Sophie, just on behalf of myself and council, great job. We always love to celebrate when Ajax residents do us proud, and we are very, very proud of you, and you make us look good and really help put Ajax on the map. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the meeting. It's an honor.
Excellent. Did you have anything you'd like to say?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
I can share my experience a bit though.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so everything was paid for by Hockey Canada. And honestly, the experience was amazing. Like, it was so professional. We were treated like pros. There would be a bus that would take us from the hotel to the rink, and everything was timed down to the minute. Like, for example, our warm-up, there was a specific time, then they would give us a 1-minute warning before we had to come off the ice. That we did O Canada before every game. And during the finals and semifinals, I thought it was cool. We did it in 3 different languages, French, English, and in Cree, which I thought was really cool. And, during the finals, TSN came to live stream our game. So it was like we were NHL players almost. There was commercial breaks. I think there was about 3 per period. Then there was the big Jumbotron. At one point in the 3rd period, they zoomed in on my face for a good 7 seconds, and I started laughing, which was kind of funny. And then there was this guy dressed in white with a camera that would come on the ice whenever there was a goal or a penalty, and it was just so cool.
Awesome. Councilor Bauer, you have a question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Great story, so exciting. Congratulations. My question is, who did you guys play in the final game, and what was the final score?
So we played Fraser Valley, a team from BC, and the final score was 4-1.
Nice. So you killed it. Good stuff. Thank you so much. Yeah. Great to meet you, Sophie. Thank you for coming, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. It was good to meet you as well.
All right, I don't see any other hands, so thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we wish you all the success in your future. I'm sure you're going to do great.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, our next item is 5.3 presentation council workshops wrap up. Natasha Sharma, Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator. Natasha, whenever you're ready. Do you have 5 minutes?
Yes, I do.
I don't know if council presentations have 5 minutes, but do your best.
I will not take that long, though. I want to just congratulate council first and foremost on the Ajax Council Anti-Racism Diversity Training Plan. Next slide, please. So in November 16, 2020, council committed to taking concrete actions against systemic racism in all forms and committed to inclusion and equitable treatment of all, regardless of race, age, class, creed, language, culture, religion, sexual orientation, and any other factor. Council also agreed to building a foundation of collective understanding about cultural relations and the impacts of systemic racism required specialized and professional training. Next slide. So phase 1 of this anti-racism and diversity training plan, we covered unconscious bias training, and that was completed on April 12th of 2021. And it was led by trainer Michelle Shaw. It entailed of a 2-hour session and discussion covering the nuances of unconscious bias as it relates to each individual experiences and perspectives through an intersectional lens. Next slide, please. Phase 2 covered anti-Black racism training, and that was completed on June 26th of 2021, led by trainer Allison Hector Alexander, whom we're all very familiar with. It was a 2.5-hour session that covered some of these following topics. So historical context of anti-Black racism in Canada, the trajectory of oppression, race and social constructs, racism defined, systemic racism through an Ajax lens, council's role and responsibility to address anti-Black racism, and inclusive and anti-racist practice and leadership. Next slide, please. Phase 3, we covered anti-racism training as a whole, and that was completed September 27th of 2021. And that was led by Aubrey Nerona, educator and speaker. That session covered the idea of being anti-racist and the idea of color blindness by introducing strategies and techniques to continuously unlearn the systemic and social constructs that perpetuate racism through systemic structures and organizations for council. Next slide. Phase 4 covered gender and inclusion training and gender diversity as a whole. And that was completed recently in April 29th of 2022. That was led by Jake Farr from PFLAG Durham. And that was also a 2-hour training session covering the following topics of why is gender diversity important? He provided an overview of the history of the 2S LGBTQI community. He provided accurate information about gender diversity. He reviewed some terms and identities. And he also helped council understand the importance of allyship as a whole. Next slide, please. So phase 5, we covered accessibility training, and that was completed on May 24th of 2022, led by trainers Kelsey Ford, Ian Brown, and Mike Walker, members of the lead team from the Ability Center. This training session covered the ideas of visible and invisible disabilities. This session also outlined the strategies toward providing an inclusive and accessible space for all through innovative and progressive ideologies around universal accessibility within the community. Next slide, please. So overall, I would like to formally congratulate Ajax Council. They are the only elected officials in the region to commit to this learning and knowledge journey. Ajax Council has acknowledged the responsibility as leaders to ensure they learn to do better on the path to social equality. They've put forth 10 plus hours of training, of thorough training and discussion sessions. They've learned about and understand that the uncomfortable conversations are a part of the learning and unlearning process and journey. Your great stand against the injustices many communities face today and the time that you've committed toward denouncing racism and understanding intersectionality in all of its forms is commendable and inspiring. And of course, we're proud to see that the learning is still continuing with a homelessness training session taking place on July 5th of this year. So I would like to formally congratulate all of you and give you a little round of applause on your session towards education and unlearning topics of social justice. So thank you.
Here we go. Thanks, Natasha. Any questions? I'll just make one quick comment, and that is one, thank you very much for your leadership on this, Natasha. It's been great, very, very educational. I feel much more in tune and able to identify. One thing, I recently completed the Excellence in Leadership program at Rotman School of Business, and they were teaching us a whole module on diversity and inclusion. And it was really kind of rewarding to know that everything they taught us, I'd already learned through this program at the town, and all the best practices that they were teaching, we had already brought in at the town and we were already doing. So I think we are quite a bit ahead of a lot of the municipalities. I think they will catch up, and I think we've taken a huge step forward in overcoming systemic racism and racism as a whole. So thank you very much for everything you've done for us.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item, item 5.4, the 2022 construction update. Dave Meredith, Director of Operations and Environmental Services.
Okay, I'm going to pass this on to
Mr. Fernando.
Fernando.
Yes.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Through the chair, good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2022 capital projects update. This presentation has been pre-recorded. Lisa Nags, our engineering associate, has provided the narration for the slides. We will answer any questions at the end of the presentation. I would now like to share my screen. Sarah, am I able to share my screen here? I can't seem to do it.
One moment, Mr. Fernando, and we will get you situated. You should be all right to proceed.
Perfect. Give me 1 second. Okay. Can everyone see my screen? Can you see my screen or can you hear me?
It's the 22. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Here we go.
Through the chair. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. I am pleased to present to you the 2022 Capital Projects Update. Construction of trails and parks. Cedar Park is located on the south side of Cedar Street at Nelson Avenue. The existing batting cage and pitching machine at Cedar Park are in poor condition and in need of replacement. Furthermore, the future widening of the 401 may potentially impact its current location. The project includes the replacement and relocation of the existing batting cage and pitching machine identified in yellow to its new location identified in red. The work will also include the replacement of the shed and new electrical connections. The project is scheduled to commence in the fall and be completed by the late fall 2022. Betty Bajou Park. As part of the CSA guidelines and the Region of Durham health standards, playground structures have a life expectancy of 15 to 20 years. Through condition assessments, Betty Bajou Park has been identified for an upgrade. The scope of this project includes replacement of the existing playground equipment, landscape improvements, new site furniture, and trail improvements. The work will commence in the summer and be completed in the fall of 2022. Let's communicate. Picture exchange communication system boards will be installed at Audley Recreation Center, McLean's Community Center, and the Rotary Park playgrounds. The boards are designed to be an alternative form of communication used by learners of all ages who have various cognitive, physical, and communication challenges. The contract has been awarded to a local company in Ajax. Staff are meeting with the contractor for the installation of the boards at the 3 locations and should be completed by early summer 2022. The Smart Playgrounds incorporates the use of smartphones to download games such as obstacle courses, treasure hunts, team play, and other make-believe adventure games for kids aged 3 to 9. Signage at the playground instructs the user to download a free app which unlocks a variety of games on their phone. Depending on the level of usage, Smart Playgrounds may expand to other playgrounds. A project meeting with the contractor is scheduled for the week of June 20th at Paradise Park Playground. The installation is expected to be completed within a week. The Mulberry Meadows Neighborhood Park is a new park located at Ainley Road and Turnerbury Avenue. The park will include junior and senior playground, gazebo shade structure, walkways, fenced leash-free area, a basketball court, fitness equipment, site furniture, and lighting and landscaping. The project will commence in the summer with completion expected in the fall. Staff will coordinate with corporate communications to ensure that the public and council are notified. Through the annual parking lot condition assessments, St. Andrews Community Center parking lot has been identified for improvement. The improvements will include new walkways, new LED lighting, landscaping, a new playground located at the northeast corner of the park. In addition to the parking lot improvements, 2 new pickleball courts will be installed at the north of the gazebo. Notifications will be provided to the users of the community center with safe passage to the community gardens during construction. Staff will coordinate with corporate communications to ensure that the public is notified. Construction will commence in the summer and it is expected to be completed in the fall of 2022. 2 stream waste containers will be installed at a variety of locations within Ajax Park's system. The project will commence in the summer and be completed by late fall. Design projects. The 2019 Town of Ajax Integrated Transportation Master Plan identified Roslyn Road from Church Street to Lake Ridge Road for a 4-lane urban widening. This will result in additional capacity more alleviation to congested roads such as Kingston Road and Taunton Road, while improving mobility and transit operations. The segment of Roslyn Road between Westney Road and Audley Road will include 4 lanes with a center turning lane, a 3.0 meter multi-use path on the north and south side, landscaping, new LED streetlights, improved drainage, and AODA compliant crossrides at intersections. The segment of Roslyn Road between Audley Road and Lakeridge Road will include 4 lanes, 2 in each direction, 3.0 meter multi-use path on the south side, a 1.8 meter sidewalk on the north side, landscaping, new LED streetlights, improved drainage, and AODA compliant crossrides at intersection. The detailed design project is anticipated to commence in the summer of 2022 upon completion of the environmental assessment and expected to be completed in the fall of 2023. The 2019 Town of Ajax Integrated Transportation Master Plan also identified Harwood Avenue from Taunton Road to Woodcock Avenue for a 4-lane urban widening. This will result in additional capacity, provide relief to Salem Road and Westney Road, and the widening would support urbanization of the area and improve transit operations. The detailed design project is anticipated to commence in the fall of 2022 upon completion of the environmental assessment and expected to be completed in the fall of 2023. Meadows North Park. The park is located at Williamson Drive and Hazeldean Drive. The park will include a new junior and senior playground, walkways, LED lighting, site furniture, and landscaping. The design is scheduled to commence in the fall of 2022 and be completed by the end of the year. Construction is scheduled for 2023. Kingston Road streetlight design will include detailed design of new streetlights from Wicks Drive to Lakeridge Road. The detailed design and implementation will be completed by the Region of Durham. Design is expected to be completed in the fall, with the construction commencing in the spring of 2023. Through the annual municipal parking lot condition assessments, the Town Hall parking lot was identified to be in poor condition. Furthermore, it was also found through a recent water main break that the existing water main through the parking lot was also in poor condition and in need of replacement. The detailed design will include the replacement of the water main, repairs to damaged curbs and sidewalk, traffic calming measures, new asphalt surface with pavement markings, and new AODA compliant parking and pedestrian crossings. The detailed design has commenced and scheduled to be completed by the fall of 2022. Construction will commence in the spring of 2023. Construction projects. Accessible pedestrian signals. The scope of this project includes design and installation of accessible pedestrian signal controls at various intersections. The work will be completed by the end of 2022 by the Region of Durham to meet the AODA standards. Through the annual municipal parking lot condition assessments, the parking lot at 25 Mills Street was identified to be in poor condition. In addition, the concrete walkway steps and handrail were also found to be in poor condition and in need of repair. The detailed design for this project is currently being completed in-house, with construction scheduled to commence in the summer of 2022. The project is expected to be completed in late fall 2022. Staff will coordinate with corporate communications to ensure that the tenant is notified ahead of construction. The Millers Creek softball fence has been identified for replacement as it is in very poor condition. Construction work is scheduled to commence in the fall, with completion expected by the end of 2022. Southwood Park Neighborhood Streetlight Improvements Project. The construction work will include the replacement of damaged poles, replacement of buried streetlight wires, and upgrade to LED luminaires. Construction will commence in the summer of 2022 and is expected to be completed by the fall of 2022. Through the town's semi-annual streetlight and pole condition assessments, streetlight poles in poor condition have been identified on various streets throughout the town of Ajax for replacement. The The project is scheduled to commence in the summer of 2022 and expected to be completed by fall of 2022. Applecroft Trail Reconstruction and Lighting Replacement. Through the annual trail assessment program, the segment identified in red was considered as high priority for maintenance. Work includes removal of the existing trail, installation of a new asphalt trail, and new LED lights. The trail work will be completed prior to the start of the school season, and it is anticipated that the LED lights will be installed by the end of 2022. Through the town's pavement management program, various roads are identified for improvement annually based on pavement quality. The roads in the table have been identified for improvement in the 2022 road resurfacing program. The 2022 road resurfacing program includes the removal and replacement of sections of concrete curb, gutter, and sidewalk, placement of new roadway asphalt, pavement markings as required, driveway apron restoration, and topsoil and sod restoration as required. The project will commence in the summer of 2022 and be completed by the fall of 2022. The municipal structure inspection study indicated that footbridge 112 along the waterfront trail is due for maintenance. The detailed design was completed in 2021 and the project is proceeding to construction. The work includes the repair of various components of the bridge, such as floor beams, deck components, and the repainting of steel deck to prevent corrosion. The project will commence in late fall and be completed by the end of 2022. The P-gate replacement project involves the replacement of various P-gates that are in poor condition at various locations within the town. The project is anticipated to commence in the fall of 2022 and be completed by the end of 2022. Building maintenance projects. The Ajax Cricket site is located at the northeast corner of Clements Road West and Monarch Avenue. The site has land area of approximately 6 acres, complete with a clubhouse and cricket field. The existing clubhouse was constructed in 1980 with an addition in 1990. In 2021, the town retained a consultant to complete a condition assessment of the facility, and it was determined that the clubhouse is in very poor condition and the cost of repair would be greater than constructing a new building. The project is currently in detailed design and will include landscape improvements, installation of a new artificial wicket complete with concrete base, new batter's eye screens, barrier netting, improved irrigation, sport field lighting, new expanded parking lot, and a new field house facility with change rooms and public washrooms. The construction is expected to commence in the fall of 2022 and completed in the summer of 2023. Through the annual facility condition assessments, the MCC pool filtration system and the pool slide were found to be in very poor condition due to their age and in need of replacement. The project will include the replacement of the filtration system, waterproofing and tiling the existing hot tub, and the removal and replacement of the existing pool slide. Public notices have been placed on the town's website and social media. Staff will continue to coordinate with corporate communications to ensure that the public is notified prior to the closure of the pool. The project will commence January 2023 and will be completed at the end of March. Condition assessments. This project involves the condition assessment of all town-owned retaining walls. The assessment will provide recommendations for maintenance and rehabilitation as required through asset management. The assessment is also required to meet the Ontario Regulation 588/17 Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure. This project is scheduled to commence in the summer of 2022 and be completed by the end of 2022. The condition assessments of parks, walkways, parking lots, sports fields, streetlights, and poles will allow asset management to provide recommendations for maintenance and replacement based on priority. The assessment is also required to meet the Ontario Regulation 588/17 Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure. The project is scheduled to commence in the summer of 2022 and be completed by the end of 2022. Regional Municipality of Durham. 2022 capital construction projects in the town of Ajax, water and sanitary sewer. The Region of Durham has undertaken a project to replace the water main along the section of Pickering Beach Road adjacent to the main road south of Ford Road. The region is anticipating a contract award in fall 2021 with construction commencing in summer of 2022. This project will take 3 months to complete from the time of the award. The town will coordinate with the Region of Durham to provide public information through corporate communications. The Region of Durham has also undertaken a project to replace the water main along Achilles Road west of Salem Road. The region is anticipating construction commencing in the fall of 2022. This project will take approximately 4 weeks to complete from the time of the award. The town will coordinate with the Region of Durham to provide public information. Thank you, and Renee will be happy to answer any of your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for that thorough review of our capital budget. Councillor Crawford, I saw your hand next. First, sorry. Thank
you. Through you to Mr. Fernando. The light design on Kingston Road, is this in preparation for Metrolinx, that section?
Through the chair to Councillor Crawford, no, that's a separate project to improve the lighting along Kingston Road. It's done by the Region of Durham.
Is just to make them brighter?
No, I think they're changing it to LED lights. I believe Mr. Solomon is on the line. Russell, do you have anything to add to that?
Hi there, through Councillor Crawford, this is Russell speaking. So yes, some of these sections on Kingston Road don't have streetlights. So for those areas that don't have streetlights, the new lights will be installed. And the sections that do have streetlights right now, they're currently either high pressure sodium lights or metal halide lights, and they're going to be replaced with LEDs.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask a question that was not on the report, actually? Is that all right?
Yes, sure.
Go ahead and we'll see.
Okay. I noticed along Taunton Road, the trails, they've added bike lights. Have you noticed that? That at the intersections, they now have a light that has got a bike on it, similar to what was on Roslyn Road there.
Yeah, I think you're talking about. Sorry, are you talking about the cross rides with the signal lights that indicate a crossing for cyclists? Yes.
They've done that along the whole Taunton Trail ride, right? Have they unveiled those? Are they working now?
I am not 100% sure. I can do some research and get back to you. Yeah, I
was just curious. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
You're very welcome. Councillor Tyler Moore, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks for the presentation. Excellent. Glad this is all happening. Are you able to speak to the next round? Would St. Catharines Park possibly be on that? See a lot of playgrounds in Ward 1, and that one is in particularly not an engineer, not in the assessment process. Is that one on the radar?
St. Catharines?
Correct. St. Catharines Park on Bennett Avenue. If you don't have the answer now, we can speak about this another time.
I can, you know what, I can let me look and I can get back to you, Councillor Warren. I'm looking at my list now. It's not jumping at me, but I can look and see where it is on the forecast.
I wanted to jump at you, but okay. Thank you, Worship. Thank you.
I have the capital budget on my screen on the other screen, and St. Catharines is not in the capital budget.
Right. Just wondering what it might be. Okay. Thank you. We can get back to that.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Councillor Bauer and Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. Nice to see you, Mr. Fernando. I just had a question about the park's two-stream waste containers. And it just, the slide had said a variety of locations within Ajax's park system. Do you have a ballpark figure of how many units will be or containers will be placed this year? this summer?
I don't have that information in front of me, but I can definitely get back to you with that.
Okay, yeah, just curious.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Khan.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Fernando. So these road widenings from Westney, Roslyn widening from Westney to Audley, and then it mentioned the Woodcock to Taunton from and Harwood. These are all commencing now. This is summer 2022, starting today or tomorrow, I think, right? So I'm a bit concerned because the Westney widening is happening right now from Roslyn to Taunton. And cars are taking the Roslyn area we were talking about widening, and also taking that Harwood area to get to Taunton to avoid the Westney traffic. All this, do you know, first question is, do you know when the Westney widening is scheduled to be completed before they throw all this in the mix? Because that's our area. That's going to be a mess, especially through Nottingham and Sagar. Everybody's using that to avoid the Westney widening. Now, working on Roslyn and Harwood at the same time, I can't begin to imagine the congestion is going to happen within our neighborhoods. Do you know when the Westney widening is scheduled to be completed?
Through the chair to Councillor Khan, the two projects that I spoke about, they're both detailed design projects. So the Roslyn Road, the two segments, well, at least the segment that's going from Westney all the way to Lake Ridge is a detailed design project. It's not construction. And the Harwood Avenue North from Taunton to Woodcock is also a detailed design project, not construction. Construction will begin next year.
What does detailed design project mean?
It means it's being designed right now. So the construction will happen. It's been designed right now. The construction will happen after the detailed design has been completed.
So it's safe to say Westney should be completed then?
It will be completed before those begin, yes.
Do we as Ajax staff and residents have any stake in the progress of the building, or that's just up to the region to go at their own pace? Do we have any say in it?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Do we as Ajax or adjacents have any stake in the progress of the building? Like on Westney, because it looks really painstaking. I don't know how long
it's the regional road, Councillor Khan?
Right.
It's the regional road, yeah. So we have no stake in it.
No, the region is
streetlights and a sidewalk, but it's a regional project.
Right, and the region is leading that project right now. They're the ones who are constructing it.
Okay, all right. Thank you for
as Councillor Khan, if you have any specific sort of issues regarding that, we can always bring it up to the region. We are in contact with the project managers, and we do attend meetings and so on. So we can always bring that any information to their attention if anything is needed to do that.
That's amazing. I'll reach out to you with concerns about just the time frame. One more thing, Renee, Mr. Fernando, you might know that I noticed on the cricket update that you're putting in a change room for the referees. As you all know, cricket is a gentleman's sport. We don't need a referee. I think that's for hockey. We just need an umpire room. It's a UMPIRE. So we can correct that moving forward. Anyways, thank you very much for your time. Thank you, Mayor Collier.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer, I do see your hand, but you've already spoken, so I'm going to see if anybody else has questions first. Any other member of council? Okay, I'm going to ask mine, and I'll come back to you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on the Westney, I remember knocking on doors in the 2012 election, Marilyn, you too probably, and people asking, and it was supposed to be done in 2012. And I thought about that when I drove it today and what a mess it's in 2022, just in time for the election again. So I'm sure we'll be discussing that quite a bit more, but I think we're all very eager for that project to be completed. Mr. Fernando, are any of the projects that you showed us new? We all were in the capital budget meeting. We all saw these projects. I can't recall if any of these ones that you showed were ones that had to be added throughout the year and weren't part of the capital budget we approved in 2022.
No, they are not. They were all in the long range
2021. Okay, good. And just to the Roslyn Road road rationalization with the region and the transfer of that asset to the region, because that should be a regional road. And in our council information package we received on Friday, I noticed that the Roslyn Road section from Lake Ridge to Cochrane in Whitby has now been assumed by the region. So Whitby has transferred that to the region. However, Roslyn Road west of Lake Ridge is still Town of Ajax, and we are still spending tens of millions of dollars in upgrading this. Can you tell me where we are on that road rationalization? Because that road is supposed to be uploaded to the region. It is a regional road in every respect. And,
sure.
Yeah.
Through the chair to Mayor Collier. I think Mr. Meredith is on the line. Maybe he'll be able to better answer this because he's been more involved with the region with these discussions.
Thanks, Renil. You're correct, Mayor Collier. There's been recent discussions with regional staff and subsequent discussions with town staff as it relates to road rationalization and the potential for road transfers, including Roslyn Road. At this point in time, the region has indicated a willingness to take on Roslyn Road, and there is coordination efforts that are taking place, recognizing that our respective DC bylaws and background studies are going to be completed over the next year with the anticipation that they will be updated and approved by our respective councils in July of 2023. So there is an appetite, and the region has an appetite to have Roslyn Road captured and identified within the region's DC bylaw. From a municipal perspective, well, that has some merit and makes some sense. We are mindful of the obligations that the town may be taking on with respect to Westney Road and the costs associated with that and the corresponding funding sources in terms of how we would fund that. So those conversations are ongoing. They'll continue through the summer, and we will provide council with updates as those conversations advance.
But Mr. Mayor, we've been speaking with the region about this road swap since well before this term of council. And I understand the concerns on costing, because if they take on Roslyn and we assume Westney, but my understanding where those are supposed to be a wash, we have spent somewhere in the neighborhood, and this is a ballpark, but I think about 40 million so far improving Roslyn Road. And I have no doubt the region would love to acquire a fully improved road. But why would we take Westney that still needs many capital improvements and still spend and fix our part of Roslyn? To me, I would think we not do any more other than what we've already started on Roslyn and let the region assume the rest. And that way we're not spending money twice doing Westney later.
So the primary issue relates to the funding source. The work that we're doing on Roslyn Road is predominantly DC funded, as you know, is identified in the town's DC bylaw. Westney Road is not eligible from a development charge perspective, or if it is, it's going to be a very small portion. So the funding, which could be well in excess of $10 to $15 million for Westney Road, would have to be funded through our existing reserves. So there are some concerns that we do have, and some of our discussions are asking the region to take on some of the responsibility that they have in terms of the maintenance and improvements on Westney Road before we would take on the 100% responsibility. And that includes everything from the road, surface improvements to the signalize and turning lane upgrades that are required sort of in the Finley and Westney Road area, the alignment of the road, the potential need for an EA to look at some lane widenings to make some of the portions of Westney Road somewhat safer. It's a considerable project and expense that we're not saying no, we just need to be mindful of before we're in a position to make a recommendation to council. We need to ensure that we've got the ability to fund those future improvements.
Well, is there anything saying that, you know, we have to take on Westney? It also serves absolutely as a regional road.
You're
correct. Criteria. Why would we take Westney on ourselves, which is a regional road, but also keep Roslyn, which is also serves every component of a regional road in nature, when we have other roads in the region like Olive Gibb and Oshawa and places like that are like little infill residential streets that are under region's jurisdiction.
Right. These are all discussions that are ongoing, and I just wanted to let you and council know that these conversations are active. They've been active as recent as a couple of weeks ago. The region is looking to move this forward now, probably quicker than they have in the past. So there's definitely appetite there, but we're looking at it from a town perspective in terms of making sure that we've got the right deal and arrangement in place. part of our comments have been for the region to take on Roslyn Road and questioning sort of what the town's role is in terms of the improvements as it relates to Westney Road itself.
Okay, so I know you say it's mostly DC funded. What does that mean? 70%, 80%?
Well, quite often it's generally between 75 and 90%, depending on how the DC bylaw is written and sort of what the benefit to existing development is. So there is a split when we look at the capital detail sheet that would show, I don't have that actual detail sheet in front of me to show what the actual funding split is. But yeah, I think it'd be safe to say that it would be in the range of 75% plus for Roslyn Road.
Well, I guess where I'm going with this is, even if it is DC funded, I would still rather have the region assume it and do the work, and we'll give them the DCs for the 75%, let them pay the 25%. But us paying 100% to improve it, whether DC or out of our regular capital, and then handing it over completely finished, I don't know is the right way to do it.
The general premise of discussions with the region has been on both parties, from both parties' perspective, that there's no transfer of money one way or the other. So what would happen is I don't think we would want to transfer any of our DC reserves to the region. We know we've got other projects that need to be funded through DCs that we don't see that being necessarily in the equation. The region's not asking for DC money either. All they're asking is that by July 1st of 2023 that they have Roslyn Road identified in their DC background study so that they are then collecting DCs towards the improvements on Roslyn Road.
Okay. That's the end of my questions. Councillor Bauer, then Councillor Crawford.
Thank you very much. It was just a follow-up, but the two stream waste containers I forgot to ask. Are these replacing existing garbage cans in the parks or trails, or are these or will there also be like new locations?
Through the chair to Councilor Barber, it's both. So wherever there are the existing ones that are outdated will be replaced by the new ones, and then we'll be adding some new ones as well along the trail systems.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question was about the DCs. If we get the region to assume Roslyn Road, what the DCs still stay here? That was my question, and that is what you said, right, Director Meredith?
That's correct.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. But we couldn't take those DCs, that DC money, and apply it to Westney because I'm assuming there has to be development around a road in order to use it, the DCs, is that right?
Correct. There's no money identified Westney Road south of Bailey that would be growth related that would be eligible for DCs. So we'd be funding that through our road maintenance reserve, and it's more of from an asset management or a life cycle replacement cost. There may be, and this is where we'd have to have the discussions where we're talking about turning lanes or what have you, where we need to increase capacity based on growth, but it would be minimal. It might be 10% that would be eligible. There wouldn't be a huge or significant portion of those improvements that would be growth related that would be eligible for DCs.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, any further questions from members of council? Seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Fernando, for the presentation, and Mr. Meredith as well. Appreciate it. Moving on to our next item, item 5.5, which is the additional delegation by Mr. Randy Vincent regarding the disposal of Sylvan Drive. Is Mr. Vincent on the call?
Yes, good evening. I'm here.
Please go ahead, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much. Find this a little difficult, but I'd like to say good evening. Thank you to the Mayor, Council, and town staff for their assistance in providing me a voice in these matters. I speak on behalf of myself and a number of the neighbors within the community and friends in regards to the application for the Sylvan Drive closure, stop up and closure. This has been an item or an area within the community that has a long history, meaning by that matters on that property with the owners of the property have gone on for quite some time. Excuse me, I find this a little difficult to discuss because we're talking about neighbors and friends here. but if you can bear with me, I'll just carry on for a moment. The property that is being addressed for the severance parcel of the Sylvan Drive was originally a 50 by 125 foot lot. At some point in time, the new owners purchased that property to develop it for a custom home, which eventually was constructed on the property. I'm giving you a little bit of background because there's quite a bit of history here, which leads us to the current time here. The property consisted of 8 minor variances, a sale of 1.2 to 1.3 to 1.5 meter strip of land at some point. There was a severance involved. The Ontario Municipal Board was involved. The Ombudsman's Office of Ontario was involved. A lease agreement, an encroachment, now another road purchase, road allowance, and continued development on adjacent properties, meaning abutting property of Block N and private lands and shoreline. So over the years, starting 2005, that's a very brief history of the events that have occurred on this property until current. I and fellow neighbors are concerned about the present proposal, primarily due to the fact that we have an abutting parcel of land, which would be the shoreline. The shoreline access could be and will be impeded by the process of a severance and allowing us access to the abutting land being our lands. The paperwork I have in front of me is extensive, so you have to bear with me here, but the matters starting back in 2005, I assume it was, through to current, involved a initial severance of the parcel, under which we have a Plan 525 involved, a registered or deregistered plan, depending on who you speak to. With that being said, that plan, is my understanding, does not allow for severance down here. So of my questions and concerns, one being of how severances were achieved here, first one being a 1.3 to 1.5 meter piece of land, and the second one now being proposed at a 1.9 meter piece of land. This is on a road allowance and is also protected lands. So the processes in question, as severances are not permitted down here. So I'd like to understand the process by which that was achieved. The report that was produced in 2000 and sorry, I'm going to give you the report number. The report number was PDS 202138. That's the Town of Ajax report. It is my understanding that that report was provided to you as a background of the property and the proposal, the stop up and closure. In 2020, the lease agreement on the 1.5 meter, which I believe is now 1.9 meters, is still in effect. So by my calculations, there's a lease agreement on that parcel from 2020 up to 2023, September 27th. So the lease agreement is still in effect and has not expired, which asks another question as to why this is moving forward at this point with the lease agreement in place. The drawings that were provided in that report, which you based your decisions on, I believe you've already made a council decision to move forward on this, provides a survey by whom I'm not sure. It's on page 5, which indicates the severance of the new parcel indicated by a fence line. It says chain link fence on the description on page 5. The new survey that's been provided by, I believe it was Omari, now does not have a fence indicated on it. I bring this to your attention because the fence line is referenced multiple times as a point of reference for the distance out or potential purchase, I guess, of the property. So this is just another point I'd like clarified as to why or where the fence is and what its relationship is to the purchase or severance. The property itself, the structure within the property is, my understanding, was built very close to the property line, if not over the property line. And I believe this was the beginning of the chain of events that have led us to this point. So again, I'd like to understand the process and how and why we've kind of got to this point. The conditions on page 6 of your report states that the staff are in support of disposal of a portion of Sylvan Drive on open road allowance to R&J Kelly, as it will eliminate the need for the existing license agreement. So that would be one condition. Second condition, or conclusion, I should say, would be, but also removes the need for the Kellys to further use town lands to access their waterfront seawall. If you can refer back to both surveys, the one provided on that report, which was page 5, and the new one that's been provided by Mr. Omari, take a good look at the lot size. You will see that Mr. Kelly doesn't have any seawall, or very little. The seawall that is referred to as access for Mr. Kelly's seawall is actually privately owned. It's owned by a whole bunch of people down here along the shoreline, of which we need access to do maintenance, restoration work, or even for liability purposes. Mr. Kelly over the years, I'm sorry, I would like to use the name, the owner over the years.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes.
You're well over your 5 minutes. You're going to have to wrap up, please. Why don't I help by asking, what is it that you're looking for from this council? Because we have to revisit the decisions made in 2008, 3 councils ago. But tell me what it is that you're looking for.
Great, appreciate that, and thank you. I ramble on. I don't realize how fast 5 minutes goes by. What we're looking for is assurance that the access to the block end portion of the property abutting the Kelly's property is accessible, that the identification of the newly severed portion or parcel that you wish to sever is identified by a fence line in this survey, and that we can be assured that that is the maximum of the division. The fact that we will not be forced to trespass on the newly created Mr. Kelly's property to access our property.
Okay. I'll do my best, and I'll turn it over to our Director of Planning, or his designate, to fill in the blanks. I was here in 2008 when this was the 1.2 meter, I believe it was, severance was conveyed to the applicant for the construction of the home. There was some work done that exceeded that. We remedied that by the fence and having an encroachment agreement on the extra piece of property because there was some infrastructure, a path and whatever that kind of had to be there. So that encroachment agreement required a $500 a year payment to the town for insurance and some other stipulations, which was kind of onerous for us to have to renew every year and maintain. The piece of land that it's only a little bit of an extension, I think about maybe a meter or so to bring it to the fence line, that's not going to change. That fence is staying. And I can assure you there will still be access on the east side of the fence all the way down, regardless of the road allowance being stopped up and closed or not. That is still public and that is still accessible. And that's what I recall just off the top of my head. But Mr. Romanowski, can you fill in the blanks, please?
To the mayor. No, you covered all the aspects there accurately. To answer Mr. Vincent's question, the fence that's existing out there today is remaining in its location. It's the boundary between the town lands and Mr. Kelly's lands as a result of this conveyance. I wouldn't use the term severance at all because there wasn't any severances here. They were conveyances through the appropriate process. The 1.2 or 1.3 meters, as Mr. Vincent has noted, and so have you, Mr. Mayor, That was part of an original transaction with Mr. Kelly and the town. In the early 2010 or 12 timeline, if I'm not mistaken. Then the lease agreement was in addition to that, and this transaction supersedes the lease agreement and then adds another 30 to 40 centimeters to make it over to the fence. Access through the Sylvan Drive right-of-way is still going to be maintained as it exists today, as the fence is not being relocated. We did meet with Mr. Vincent to go over this, and this is definitely part of the information that we've passed on to council ahead of this meeting to provide you that context as well. I don't think there's really anything else for me to add at this point, as the fence is staying in its location and access is still available through the remaining portion of the Sylvan Drive right away.
I think I can also add, Mr. Romanowski, that there won't be any further consideration of any further extensions past the fence to the applicant. Okay. This is it. It's been going on for a long time, and we're not dealing with this again after tonight.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Vincent?
Yes, sorry, thank you. That clears up a few things. Again, a number of neighbors are kind of listening in now, so do appreciate the clarification. I think Mr. Rowanowski did indicate the fence stays as is in this town property and will be re-shown on the drawing. I don't know how that, or the survey, I don't know how that applies, but taking you guys at face value in that word, we hope that's the case. We still wish to be able, as I previously mentioned, to access the portion of Block N that abuts the Kelly property for occasional maintenance and things of that nature. So I assume we'll be allowed to do that, and this won't impede us in any way.
Mr. Romanowski?
No, it won't impede anybody in any way. There was one point that Mr. Vincent just brought up that I wanted to reiterate. Oh, yes, we have asked for the 40R plan to be upgraded to indicate that, to properly label. It was showing the marks of the fence in its location, but we asked the surveyor to update the legend in the 40R plan to demarcate that symbol stands for an existing fence not to be removed.
Excellent. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Last question, and just for my clarification, you mentioned it was not a severance. The first and I assume the second parcel that was to be sold, is that how the process is? What are we calling this?
Conveyance, I believe.
That's conveyance. Right. Conveyance.
Okay. Because we've had such a history down here of shoreline, I'm sure you guys are aware of it, and conveyance, is that something that's available to the other owners along this stretch for parcels of land? Can we also entertain conveyance?
Well, we're getting a little bit outside your delegation. We'll allow this last one, Mr. Romanowski.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if that's something that I could answer. I mean, I guess any resident could ask a municipality to consider conveyance of lands to their ownership if they were abutting it or if there were needs for that. But that would have to be a request that would have to come from the resident to council, probably through either the planning development department or through operations. That probably where the discussion would have to begin.
Thank you for your clarification. And again, thank you, council and staff, for all your time. We do appreciate it.
No problem at all. Did any member of council have any questions for Mr. Vincent on the delegation? No, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Vincent.
Thank you.
You speaking up. That ends the delegations. Moving on to the public meeting portion, 6.1 presentation PDS 2022-19 OPA 20-A4. Permita Holdings Limited, 310 Kingston Road East. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Good evening, Council, as well as those members of the public who are joining us virtually. My name is Eric Simpson. I'm the planner responsible for processing the submitted development applications. Please note that this meeting serves as a statutory public meeting for council to consider and make a decision on the submitted official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. The continued review and final approval of the submitted site plan application will be completed by staff. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located east of Salem Road North, west of Audley Road North, and directly north of the Wicks Drive and Kingston Road East intersection. The subject lands were previously occupied by two one-story buildings which accommodated a boarding kennel. The subject lands are surrounded by the following land uses. Directly north of the subject lands is the Hicksite Brown Quaker Cemetery. To the north of the cemetery and east of the subject lands is a large rural property that contains a variety of buildings that support a horse farm, a small-scale retail operation known as Peikoff Saddlery, and single detached dwellings. To the east of the Peikoff lands is Casino Ajax and Ajax Downs Racetrack. Along the south side of Kingston Road East are vacant lands designated for employment and environmental protection purposes. To the west is a large commercial plaza containing a variety of big box retail and restaurant establishments. Further west of Salem Road North is the RioCan Durham Center. To the south is a commercial plaza known as the Whitetail Center and residential lands. There's an existing site access private driveway located along the western limits of the subject lands. This access is located directly adjacent to the right-in and right-out access for the commercial plaza to the west, and is proposed to be removed as part of the development proposal. Kingston Road, which is identified as a regional corridor, is envisioned as a transit priority corridor. Kingston Road is intended to evolve as a major rapid transit route through the implementation of the Durham-Scarborough Bus Rapid Transit Project, the DSBRT. The project will be implemented in segments. As it relates to the subject lands, it is anticipated that construction of the Harwood Avenue to Galea Drive segment of this project will commence in spring 2023. The town-owned Hicksite Brown Quaker Cemetery, directly north of the subject lands, is a designated heritage property. The property is a landlocked parcel with no frontage along Kingston Road East. Access to the cemetery is provided through an existing easement in favor of the town located along the western limits of the subject lands. Access to the cemetery will be maintained through the development proposal. Next slide, please. The applicant has submitted an official plan amendment application, zoning bylaw amendment application, and site plan application to permit the development of a 25-story mixed-use building consisting of 369 dwelling units and 1,156 square meters of commercial space. The purpose of the official plan amendment is to establish a new area-specific policy for the subject lands to increase the maximum permitted floor plate size for the tower portion of the building. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the lands to a site-specific uptown mixed-use zone to permit additional uses and set site-specific development standards to facilitate the proposal. These amendments are discussed in detail in the following slides. A site plan application has been submitted to evaluate, review, and address all technical and functional details of the proposed development. Approval of such application will include the finalization of all required drawings and reports, entering into all necessary agreements, and satisfying all conditions of development. Next slide, please. In accordance with the urban design policies of the town official plan, tall buildings consist of a base building / podium and a tower. These policies stipulate that the maximum floor plate size of a tower containing residential uses shall generally be no greater than 800 square meters. Setting a maximum floor plate size for towers is a common urban design policy and/or guideline for municipalities across the GTA. The size and shape of a tower floor plate works together with the height and setting of the tower to determine the overall massing of a tall building and the visual and physical impacts that such building poses on the surrounding environment. The maximum 800 square meters outlined in the town's official plan is reflective of other maximum floor plate standards across the GTA, which generally falls into a range of 750 to 850 square meters. The proposed building will be 25 stories in height with a 4-story base building podium and a 21-story tower. The proposed building will include tower floor plate sizes in excess of the maximum 800 square meters. The floor plate size for the majority of the tower, which is the 6th to the 17th stories, will be approximately 1,519 square meters in size, with decreasing floor plate sizes ranging from 1,390 square meters to 730 square meters for the 18th to 25th stories of the building. Through the review of the first submission, staff requested that the proposed building be redesigned to meet the maximum tower floor plate standard. The proposed 1,519 square meters represents a slight reduction in size from the original submission. As it was apparent that the applicant was not willing to reduce the tower floor plate beyond the 1519 square meters, this led to ongoing consultation between staff and the applicant. In an effort to work with the applicant, staff advised that they would be willing to consider an official plan amendment to address this matter, contingent on the provision of public and social benefits. More specifically, the provision of family-sized dwelling units, barrier-free dwelling units, rental tenure, and affordable dwelling units. Over time, the applicant committed to these public and social benefits. As the applicant has now committed to providing these benefits in the form of 50% accessible units, 34% family-sized units, rental tenure for the building, and 20% affordable units, staff are now in a position to support the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications. Next slide, please. The proposed building will be sited directly adjacent to the street where a new multi-use path will be implemented in accordance with the DSBRT project. The footprint of the building will encompass the majority of the subject lands. A walkway and an outdoor play area to accommodate a future daycare facility within the building will be provided along the east portion of the subject lands. The western portion of lands containing the access easement for the cemetery will include a drive aisle which will provide access to the 2 surface parking spaces, the residential lobby entrance, the cemetery on the budding lands to the north, and a loading area within the northwest corner of the lands. A vehicular entrance will be integrated into the northwest corner of the building. This entrance will provide access to the ground level and above ground parking levels of the building and the 2 levels of underground parking. Approximately 930 square meters of ground floor commercial space, separated into 9 units, is proposed and will be accessed directly from Kingston Road. The most easterly commercial unit will extend into the first level of underground parking with approximately 225 square meters of commercial space. Due to the grading of the subject lands, grade level access is proposed to the eastern portion of this first level of underground parking. The 5th story will include common indoor amenity space, which will provide access to common outdoor amenity space in the form of a rooftop terrace. In addition, dwelling units will include private balconies and terraces that range in size. The proposed building will include 369 dwelling units. A mix of dwelling unit sizes are proposed from the 5th to the 25th story of the building, which includes a variety of studio, 1 bedroom plus den, 1 bedroom plus den, 2 bedroom plus den, 3 bedroom, and 4 bedroom units. Next slide. A shared access configuration is proposed to accommodate the development proposal. The budding lands to the west are owned by RioCan and consist of a large commercial plaza. There's an existing right-in, right-out access from this plaza to Kingston Road East, abutting the southwest corner of the subject lands. This access leads to a private drive aisle which provides vehicle access through the plaza to the various buildings and parking areas, as well as to the signalized intersection for the plaza located further to the west. The applicant has coordinated with RioCan as it relates to utilizing the existing drive aisle and both access points. The parties have reached a mutual agreement on these matters, and the proposed shared access will be legally formalized through the registration of easements. The eastern limits of the commercial plaza will need to be modified in order to accommodate the proposed shared access. More specifically, a vehicular turnaround or drop-off area for the development proposal will be aligned with the existing drive aisle within the plaza. The existing access for the subject lands will be removed as part of the development proposal. As a result of this, the existing cemetery access easement on the subject lands in favor of the town will need to be modified. With the proposed shared access configuration, access to the cemetery will need to be provided through the commercial plaza. Therefore, the town will need to be a party to the easements proposed to be established. In addition to the legal easements, an agreement between the applicant and RioCan will be required. Next slide. In accordance with the urban design policies of the official plan, the proposed building will include a 4-story base building podium to reduce the visual impacts of the pedestrian environment and provide a strong sense of spatial enclosure at the streetscape level. It will include a tower step back from the face of the base building podium in order to minimize impacts at the streetscape level. It will include a series of patios, terraces, and balconies for all units within the building, include a variation in massing, and articulate visible wall surfaces through various architectural design features to create a dynamic design and reduce the visual scale of the building. It will be sited parallel to the street to define the street edge, with principal entrance connections. It will include transparent glazing and frequent entrances along the ground floor to promote an active street frontage. include weather protection devices such as roof overhangs and building indentations, maximize the amount of building frontage along the urban regional center and Kingston Road block face, maximize the amount of lot coverage to reduce large surface parking areas, and utilize a shared access configuration and integrate the parking entrance into the design of the building to minimize the visual impact of vehicular access points and entrances on the street. The proposed development will incorporate safe community design, barrier-free design, and green building and environmental design elements to provide an overall urban design that conforms with the policies of the official plan. This includes bicycle storage facilities, which includes outdoor short-term storage locations, as well as indoor long-term storage locations, a significant amount of barrier-free dwelling units within the building, barrier-free parking spaces, and barrier-free pedestrian connections, new on-site tree planting where possible, such as within the proposed rooftop amenity space, adequate lighting throughout the development site along the proposed walkway connections, the use of punch windows in the building facades to reduce avian impacts and provide a bird-friendly design, low impact development features such as infiltration gallery to help manage stormwater, a light colored building material and surface such as a cool roof to reduce the urban heat island effect, and an overall active transportation and transit supportive design to reduce the amount of vehicles accessing the development and support reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide. The images on the screen illustrate some additional elevations of the proposed development. Next slide. The subject lands are designated commercial mixed use 2 within the Uptown Regional Center of the official plan. The Uptown Regional Center is currently the largest retail commercial focus in the town, but over time is intended to accommodate large scale mixed use development as a primary intensification area for the town. The introduction of new residential development within the Uptown Regional Center supports Kingston Road as a transit priority corridor. Lands designated as commercial mixed use 2 support a broad range of commercial and high density residential uses. Tall buildings within a building height range of 3 stories, which is the required minimum, to 25 stories, the permitted maximum, are permitted. A minimum density, specifically a floor space index, FSI, of 1.25 is required, and there is no maximum density limit. As previously outlined, the maximum floor plate size of a tower containing residential uses shall generally be no greater than 800 square meters. The floor plate of the proposed building will vary in size. However, the majority of the tower will have a floor plate of approximately 1,519 square meters. As staff have reached an agreement with the applicant on the provision of the previously outlined public and social benefits, staff are in a position to support the proposed development. It is important to note that staff's support of the proposed floor plate size is solely contingent on the provision of these public and social benefits. Staff are supportive of the maximum 800 square meter floor plate size identified in the official plan and intend to enforce such requirements through subsequent development applications. Without these extensive public and social benefits, staff would not be in support of the tower floor plate size. Through the provision of a purpose-built rental building with a minimum of 50% barrier-free units, a minimum of 34% family-size units, and a minimum of 20% affordable units, the proposed development will increase the variety of housing types, tenures, unit sizes, and affordability levels within the town. This will assist in meeting the needs of the town's diverse population and enable people to stay in their community as their housing needs change. As such, in order to permit the development proposal, the applicant is requesting that the official plan be amended to establish a new area-specific policy for the subject plans to permit site-specific maximum tower floor plate sizes. The proposed official plan conforms with the municipal goals and objectives and contributes to the overall urban structure by providing residential intensification and a compact urban forum that will contribute to the range and mix of housing types, utilizing existing services and facilities to service the proposed development and take advantage of and support planned transit improvements, and assist in expanding the role of the Uptown Regional Center from a singular important retail area to a true mixed-use area. Next slide. The subject lands are currently zoned agricultural zone within the zoning bylaw. In an urban context within the town, our agricultural zone is reflective of undeveloped lands. The applicant is requesting that the zoning bylaw be amended to rezone the subject lands to the Uptown mixed-use zone. This rezoning will bring the lands into conformity with the official plan as the UC zone, which is the Uptown mixed zone, implements the Uptown Regional Center of the official plan. In addition, the applicant is requesting that the zoning bylaw be amended to establish a site-specific exception for the UC zone to set development standards that would implement the proposed development, such as zoning provisions related to maximum building height, minimum building setbacks, and parking space requirements. More importantly, the site-specific exception would permit maximum tower floor plate sizes for the proposed building and reinforce the minimum dwelling requirements as it relates to barrier-free, family size, and affordable rental dwelling units. The implementing zoning bylaw will also place a holding provision on the subject lands. In order to remove the holding provision from the lands, the applicant will need to enter into an agreement with the town to secure for the provision of affordable dwelling units. Such agreement will detail the affordability logistics of such units. In addition, they'll need to provide a clearance letter from the Ministry of Heritage as it relates to the completed archaeological assessments and complete the necessary steps to legally establish the proposed access easements with RioCan and the town and enter into an agreement with RioCan. The affordability agreement will address the applicant's responsibility for operating the affordable rental units, eligibility criteria to occupy an affordable rental unit, affordable rental rates, affordability period, and annual auditing and reporting to the town, among other logistical matters. Next slide. The identified studies and reports were submitted in support of the development proposal and have been reviewed by town and regional staff. In addition to these studies and reports, other technical documents were submitted in support of the development proposal. Next slide. The development applications were reviewed against the applicable provincial, regional, and town land use planning policy. The specific policies are outlined and addressed in detail in the report. As per the report, the development proposal is consistent with the policies of the PPS and conforms with the policies of the growth plan, regional official plan, and town official plan. Next slide. A traffic brief was submitted in support of the development proposal. The brief reviews the anticipated increase of traffic from the proposed development and its expected impact on the surrounding road network. The impacts are based on existing road network conditions and projected future background traffic conditions as a result of growth. The following study area intersections were assessed: Kingston Road and Salem Road, Kingston Road and the signalized RioCan access, Kingston Road and the right-in, right-out RioCan access, and Kingston Road and Wicks Drive. Upon full build-out, the proposed development is estimated to generate 133 two-way vehicular trips in the weekday AM peak hour, 153 two-way vehicular trips in the weekday PM peak hour, and 181 two-way vehicular trips during the Saturday peak hour. Analysis of the future total traffic conditions indicates similar levels of service, that being that each study area intersection has critical movements, experience delays, and little change is observed when compared to the future background conditions. The right-in, right-out RioCan intersection is still expected to operate with acceptable levels of service. It is important to note that the current state of the Kingston Road and Salem Road intersection is in its ultimate configuration. No additional regional improvements to the configuration of this intersection are proposed or feasible until the DSBRT project is implemented. As such, mitigation of this intersection is limited to signal timing optimization, which is an operational norm in urban areas with a high volume of traffic. The brief concludes that the traffic volume associated with the development is anticipated to contribute up to only 4% of this intersection capacity. It should be noted that the development-related traffic will not contribute to the northbound traffic volumes at the Kingston Road East and Wicks Drive intersection, and that the existing and future operational concerns of such are independent of the future development-related traffic. In addition, the implementation of the DSBRT project will limit this intersection to a right-in, right-out access only, therefore removing the northbound left turn movement and resolving the operational concerns. It is concluded that the estimated traffic generated from the proposed development is not anticipated to have a significant impact on the surrounding road network when considering the future background growth conditions. Next slide. The proposed four-story base building and podium of the building will be well under the maximum 1-to-1 base building podium height to street width ratio, and therefore establish a well-proportioned street enclosure where the height of the base building does not overpower the street. The tower portion of the building, starting from the 5th story, will be stepped back from the base building. The upper stories of the tower will be further stepped back. This variation in massing will help reduce the visual scale of the tower at street level and the adjacent residential area to the south. Setting maximum floor plate sizes for towers is a common urban design policy and guideline for municipalities across the GTA. Floor plate size restrictions are common practice to minimize and or mitigate such factors as potential shadow impacts, wind tunneling effects, loss of sky view from the public realm and surrounding properties, and the visual scale of a building. Despite the proposed oversized floor plate, the proposed building will still include a variation in massing, include upper story setbacks, establish a well-proportioned street enclosure, be set below a 45-degree angular plane, and have negligible shadow impacts on surrounding residential areas, all of which will be outlined in the next slide. All of the above features contribute to a design that helps reduce the visual scale of the building, mitigate potential adverse light, view, and privacy impacts on surrounding properties, provide a comfortable street level experience, and enhance the entrance of the future urban skyline. With the exception of the maximum tower floor plate size, the proposed building will be designed to achieve conformity with all other applicable urban design policies of the official plan. It is important to remember that the proposed building conforms with the applicable heights and density permissions. Next slide, please. Building elevations have been prepared, which demonstrate that the proposed development will be set below a 45-degree angular plane as measured from the property line of the adjacent low-density residential area. More specifically, the exterior side lot line of the residential property municipally known as 1 Wicks Drive. The upper story of the tower portion of the building, specifically stories 18 to 25, will progressively decrease in size. The southeast corner of the upper stories of the building, stories 21 to 25 more specifically, will be stepped back progressively further inwards in order to achieve conformity with the 45-degree angular plane. The proposed use of upper story stepbacks will minimize adverse impacts to these properties as it relates to sunlight and sky view access. Next slide, please. Sun and shadow diagrams were prepared in support of the development proposal. The diagrams illustrate the anticipated sun and shadow conditions for hourly intervals for the summer and winter solstice and fall equinox. For June 21st, the summer solstice, shadow impacts are expected on the residential property south of Kingston Road East during the evening, specifically between 7 and 9 p.m. It is important to note that sunset is approximately at 9 p.m. during this time of the year. For September 21st, the fall equinox, no shadow impacts are expected on the residential properties until the time of sunset, which is around 7 p.m. For December 21st, the winter solstice, no shadow impacts are expected. As such, it is anticipated that the shadow impacts of the proposed development on the residential area to the south will be negligible. A Heritage Impact Statement, an HIS, was submitted in support of the development proposal. The HIS provides an assessment of whether the proposed development will negatively impact cultural heritage resources on surrounding properties. The subject lands are not identified by the town as being of cultural heritage value or interest. However, the abutting property to the north, the cemetery, as illustrated by the sun and shadow diagrams, will have shadow impacts from the proposed development. As a result of this, a cemetery conservation plan was prepared by the applicant's arborist and cultural heritage specialist. It is the opinion of the applicant's arborist that the existing trees' maturity will enable them to survive the anticipated increased shadowing from the proposed development and will not result in immediate decline or death. All existing trees within the cemetery are proposed to be retained, and the necessary tree protection measures will be enforced through the site plan application. In addition, new shade-tolerant trees are proposed within the cemetery as part of the development proposal, and a monitoring program is suggested for the existing trees. Sun and shadow diagrams were prepared for a proxy building reflective of the maximum floor plate size permissions. And while these diagrams illustrate that the shadow impacts on the cemetery would be less with a building of this size, they still illustrate considerable shadow impacts. The in effect land use permissions permit the intensification and redevelopment of the subject lands, and as such, shadow impacts are inevitable. A stage 3 archaeological assessment was concluded for lands within 10 meters of the south and west property limits of the cemetery. No unmarked human burials, archaeological resources, or cultural features were identified. As a result, the assessment concludes that no further archaeological work is required. Next slide, please. Staff have reviewed the submitted development applications in a comprehensive manner and are supportive of the proposed development subject to the provision of the public and social benefits, as outlined in the proposed official plan and zoning bylaw amendments. Staff are supportive of and strongly encourage development that will help facilitate mixed-use intensification along a regional corridor and future transit priority corridor. The proposed development is reflective of this. The proposed development makes efficient use of underutilized land within the town and provides for housing intensification and diversification that will contribute towards the town and regional goal of providing a mix of housing types and sizes to serve residents of various household sizes, incomes, and ages. The provision of affordable rental dwelling units will assist in providing a greater mix of housing types, tenures, and levels of affordability for the needs of current and future town residents. Therefore, staff recommend approval of the official plan and zoning bylaw amendment applications, subject to the recommendations provided in this report. The continued review and ultimate approval of the site plan application will be completed by staff and other applicable agencies. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Before we open up to questions, just want to remind everybody, we are here to discuss the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment, not the actual site plan itself. That happens later. Any questions to staff? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to staff, you were going over different room options, and I think one of those called a borderless or a boundaryless. Did I get that correct?
Through the chair to regional councillor Lee. Can you just repeat that again? Sorry.
So I think you were going over different. You're like going different. Like it's more open concept for families. Some units are boundaryless or borderless.
Oh yeah. So there'll be barrier-free dwelling units. So
Barriers. Thank you. Barrier-free.
It just means accessible. The Ontario Building Code requires a minimum of 15% in an apartment building. The applicant's proposing 50%.
And currently, do a lot of our Ajax, buildings of similar size and scope, do they have a lot of barrier-free rooms as well?
They have the minimum 15%.
Okay.
It's not very common that they go above the minimum.
Great. And yeah, so that is great. I was unfamiliar with that term. So barrier-free. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Simpson.
You're welcome. Any other questions with council? Regional Councillor Dice.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just one about also the affordable units. How long are these going to be affordable for? Is there a time limit on them, or is it for the life of the building?
So one of the holding provisions is that they enter into an agreement with the town for the affordability logistics. A lot of this still needs to be worked out, but one of the matters would be the timing of it. Typically, you usually would look for 20 years for affordability. So that's something we'd be looking to enforce, but the conversations still have to be had. So that will be included in the agreement.
So what happens after the 20 years?
After the 20 years, yeah. So after the 20 years, obviously any unit with an existing tenant would be subject to rent control because that's a provincial thing. But if a new unit owner or tenant were to come around, then the applicant would be able to increase the rent to something that's not affordable if it's after the 20 years.
Also, too, just want to ensure that this site plan will come to council when it's ready.
So staff do have delegated approval authority for site plan applications. So unless that approval authority is pulled, it would be left to staff.
Is there any way that we can request to see that prior to it being approved?
Perhaps I can answer that question through the chair to Regional Councillor Dyes. We can definitely keep council in the loop with regard to the site plan application. Through Bill 109, site plan can no longer be pulled by council in terms of approval, and that authority for approval stays with staff. So, but we can definitely circulate the site plan application and keep council informed of the progress on that application.
Well, given the interest on this property, I think that the public would benefit from having an opportunity to comment as well on site plan application, as would council really, even though we have no power apparently. It'd be nice to have some sort of a say or question some things. So I'd appreciate that. And my last question is about the cemetery and behind the Hicks Cemetery, which is a heritage property. Will it be protected in any way?
Through the chair, the regional councillor does. Yeah, all existing trees are proposed to be retained. There will be a fence between the two. As I did allude in the presentation, there will be shadow impacts, but it's not intended that the trees would die as a result of that. And whether it was the floor plate size that's been proposed or the one that we would look to enforce typically, there would still be shadow impacts. So it's kind of an inevitable feature that would happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are my questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Simpson. My question was about, you talked about the easement and registration of easements and easement agreements. So can you just explain that again to me and what that means for all the parties? And is the size of the floor plate connected to the need for these registrations?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bauer. So in order to basically, an easement is just a right of way over someone else's property. So in order to formally do that, there is an application. It's called a consent application. So they would need to do that. The intent would be that the two access points for RioCan, so the signalized intersection, as well as the right in, right out, which is right beside the subject lands, and the drive aisle that basically links those two and goes around the buildings, would have an easement. It would be an easement in favor of this applicant to use those lands to access their subject site. So the easements would get legally registered on title. In addition to that, to deal with kind of the logistics around it, the financial obligations, there would be a private agreement between RioCan and the applicant, which just further enforced those easements. And because that would be the sole access for this development, the town would be looked to be a party to that agreement solely for the purposes of just ensuring that it can't be released. It can't be modified without our consent, because obviously if someone were to release that, there'd be no access for the development. And then to answer your other question, right now there's just kind of an informal driveway for these subject lands, which is right up against the right in and right out access. So that can't be formalized into a more full access, just because the region won't support a full movement access there. It's just the existing right in, right out access for RioCan, and that's it. If the building, I guess, were to be shrinked in like floor area size to allow for an access, we'll try to get an access on the eastern portion of the limits. That still wouldn't conform with regional requirements just because of the spacing requirements for intersections along the regional road. So it was kind of inevitable that there was going to have to be a shared access configuration.
Okay, thank you. And it's good to know that the town will be party to that so that it can't just be released at any time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. My other questions were asked already. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on the presentation? Okay, seeing none. As this is a public meeting, Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this matter?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 2 Ajax residents as well as the applicants are present this evening.
Thank you. Who do we have first?
The first speaker is Umbreen Akhtar.
Okay, I just want to mention again, as I said to council, we are not approving the site plan tonight. So the building specific details, we're here to approve the zoning bylaw amendment and the official plan amendment. Please go ahead with your delegation. You have 5 minutes.
Hi, thank you so much. I will pass my question to Keith because he will speak on behalf of the whole neighborhood council. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, under our rules, is that Mr. Saar is still allowed 5 minutes, right? That doesn't, or does that get changed?
No, you're correct, Mayor Collier. Time cannot be yielded to another delegate, so the limit is still 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Keith Sarah is the next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Saar. Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and thank you, Umbreen, for passing the baton to me. First of all, please confirm you are hearing me.
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Keith Saar, and I live on Halton Street. I've been a resident here for 32 years. Among many other volunteer roles, I'm currently, that is in the past, I'm currently the chairperson of Cataraqui Neighborhood Watch. So we have an interest in the impact on our residential community, as you've heard, that resides immediately south of Kingston Road and opposite this subject site. I think I need to say at the outset that I and all the residents I've spoken to are fully supportive of providing more affordable housing options, and we welcome the Town of Ajax strategy to stop urban sprawl. The things, though, that we find troubling about this project are all driven by its size. This is surely a massive building by any measure. It was disappointing to read in the staff report that after 3 applications in which they pushed back on the floor plate size, the 4th one they can support and have traded off what are meaningful public and social benefits for it seems, the floor plate size, thereby allowing, instead of 300 or 400 people living in this building, likely something between 700 or 800. And our worry is that the impact of as many people in this small space will mean there are risks of accidents attributable to more pedestrian and vehicle congestion at peak periods, not only in RioCam parking lot and along our stretch of Kingston Road, but very much in the Cataraqui neighborhood itself. We read in the material that another impact of this large double floor plate limit is the destruction of 100% of the woodlot currently on the site. And further, we feel there's a challenge to the ambience and the sanctity of the adjacent Hicksite Cemetery by situating a 25-story north face just 1 meter from the lot line. It'll be an unsightly building mass with the frontage right on Kingston Road and the east face towering above the meadow rising from Carruthers Creek and west of Peacock Farms. We learned from reading the comments that the planning consultant representing Peacock it felt or knew that the commonly used floor plate limit is based upon towers that have narrow and fast-moving shadows cause fewer adverse effects on surrounding properties. We care about this as mentioned in the report. And where exceptions have been made in GTA municipalities, and I quote here, it is typically supported by a large area of open space around the building to offset the building mass. This has not been provided at all in this instance, as we know. It seems like the largest building has been jammed into this site that could possibly be conceived. Our worry is, we're not planners, our worry is the extra people, the many extra people this permits to reside in the building will have an adverse impact on the surrounding neighborhoods. Traffic is the biggest issue, and particularly with respect to the exit from Wicks Drive onto Kingston Road. It is a comfort to read that the Wicks Drive and Kingston Road junction will ultimately be a right-in, right-out when the Durham Rapid Transit is implemented. Staff response on page 177, row 2B, referred to that. How long, though, will we have to wait for this? Could implementation of the Wicks right-in, right-out be advanced to coincide with the start of this construction? We continue to find that the updated traffic brief uses outdated statistics about flows through our neighborhood, and we worry this will only get worse. There are 3 exits to our subdivision, Chambers at Salem, Wicks and Gallia at Kingston Road. Our neighborhood consists of 482 households, and each appears to have a minimum of 2 cars, so resident-owned vehicle movements are potentially around 1,000 a day, plus our out-of-zone flows, such as increased bus and parent traffic to and from the multi-stream Cataraqui Public School.
Mr. Starr, you're going to have to wrap up here, sir. You're at almost 7 minutes so far.
All right. So fundamentally, the traffic congestion at Kingston and Salem will, we feel, induce many people to cut through the Chambers Drive, Allard, Wicks corridor and attempt a left turn into the subject property across Kingston Road, likely causing multiple serious accidents. So we ask for either the Kingston Road median to be extended eastward beyond the Wicks Drive junction when construction begins to deter this life-threatening left turn and these risk seekers cutting through our residential streets. Insofar as construction impacts, can smaller bylaws enforce measures and penalties added to proactively deter noise infractions?
Don't make me mute you, please. You're going to have to wrap up.
Mr. Mayor, with respect, Umbrian Akbar asked me to mention her issues as well.
Mr. Starr, we have our rules of procedure, and it doesn't allow one resident to give their time to another resident.
Possibly, but this is a major undertaking. We're jamming through this council meeting without a full public opportunity. Why is this not being handled in the CAP committee structure?
Are you finished with your delegation, sir?
No, but you're insisting I stop. But we haven't dealt with traffic calming issues needed on Wicks Drive to deter right turns.
I'm going to call it there then. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your delegation. Does any member of council have any questions for Mr. Starr on this delegation? Seeing and hearing none. Thank you, sir. And I was quite lenient. You're at about 8 minutes, 50 seconds. Thank you. Is there any other member of the public that wishes to speak on this, Madam Clerk?
No, Mr. Mayor, only the applicants remain.
Okay. Would the applicants care to speak on this, the proponents?
Yes, to the chairman, we appreciate concern of the residents in the area, and that was one of the reasons we designed this building in a specific way. As mentioned by staff, it's located right on a main traffic-oriented street. That's a major traffic transit-oriented street in town of Ajax. And the whole development designed in such a way that it's appealing to the people who wants to get rid of the cars, who wants to be using public transportation, who prefer to walk to the grocery stores. There is 2 grocery stores in the immediate area of the building, who prefer not to spend money on car and gas, which is being quite unaffordable nowadays. And providing of 20% of the apartments as affordable, it's further increases the amount of people who will be using public transportation. All of this is reducing number of required cars to service this type of building. Now, as to address other concerns, it would be the median would be constructed along Kingston Road that will pretty much block off the access to the building going from south to the north from Wicks Drive. So this automatically removes concerns of anybody trying to pass by through the neighborhood to avoid traffic congestion on intersection of Salome and Kingston. So that's going to be solved one way or another anyway, way before the building construction will be finished and way before first resident going to move into the building.
If I can slightly expand on that, we understand and appreciate concerns from the local residents. They were brought forward. Despite the fact that they are similar for any large-scale development, those are legitimate concerns. We did provide a detailed response to all of those concerns through the planning staff, and it's publicly available as part of this application. As to address the number of residents that we are proposing to bring into our development, there has got to be some kind of misconceptions among some local residents. The property is located in a Durham Regional Intensification Corridor. This whole area is specifically slated for high density intensification because of its proximity to transit, because of its location, central location in the town of Ajax. And overall convenience of all services within walkable distance within a reasonable radius. So the whole vision for the future is for this building not to be a sole or huge development that doesn't fit into the area. The whole vision is for the whole block to eventually transform into 25-story buildings. That's already part of the town of Ajax official plan, and that's what's mandated by the regional official plans and the provincial policies. Transit-oriented development is not about locating a building close to a bus stop. It's about making it attainable for people who depend on transit. According to statistics in the town of Ajax as of 2016, which is quite dated, but this is latest data. There's 20,000 people, residents of town of Ajax, who are using public transit or active transit to go to work. What this building does, we provide a significantly reduced parking ratios to provide more attainable cost of construction and rental and affordability down the road. What this building does, it gives these people an opportunity to be located close to the transit. So even when they come home, they don't need to get into their car just to go grocery shopping. They can come from work in a transit, and they can use transit or active walk to get everything else they need. And maybe rent a car once a month whenever they're going long distance.
Well, again, staff did pretty much great presentation explaining all the pros and cons of the development, and quite frankly, we don't see any cons. We only see on the positive side. One of the things the development providing is, as mentioned, it's providing 50% of the unit being adoptable. It's more than 3 times the requirements from the province. That means we're giving opportunity to anybody. It doesn't have to be people being handicapped, but somebody who is want to age in a building and at some point, 10 years down the road, may need to use a wheelchair. So it gives them opportunity to live comfortably in the building. And it's also providing other social benefits. It's going to be a child's daycare on the ground floor, making it easier for the families in the building, for the kids to attend it. Now, bigger floor plate, one of the benefits that wasn't mentioned in the report, it's also reducing energy consumption of the building, I believe, by about 50%
compared to the maximum limit allowed.
So it's a huge difference, and this is something that goes for hundreds of years from now. It's going to be it's a benefit that keeps on giving because it goes for the perpetuity of the lifetime of the building. And we all understand that reducing energy consumption, that's one of the goals that everybody's trying to achieve today. We believe that building is done and finished in a very nice and upscale way. So it's kind of setting the tone for the whole development, making sure that people are going to be pleased looking for it. I believe that's about all the points we can make.
Yes.
And that was exactly 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
5:01 and 68. Any questions to the proponents from members of council? Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'm going to bring the report forward from departmental reports find it in my agenda, and we'll deal with that now. Moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Khan, that official plan amendment application OPA 20-84 and implementing official plan amendment number 69 as provided in attachment 1 to this report be approved, and 2, the zoning bylaw amendment application Z5/17 and the implementing zoning bylaw as provided in attachment 2 to this report be approved. Comments on the motion? I don't see any. I'll just speak to it quickly because that is the first and only time I have ever had to cut off a delegate, and I don't like doing it, but we weren't getting anywhere with it, and I'm not going to argue with a resident publicly. We have our rules and we have to follow them. And I think I was quite lenient letting him go about 60% over. So I just wanted to say that. Now, there's a few things I agreed with the delegation. One, I'm not a planner either. And so because I'm not a planner or an engineer or a lawyer or an architect, we have to listen to the experts. We have to listen to our staff. And our staff report supports this proposal. It conforms with the provincial policy statement, the growth plan, the regional official plan, the town official plan. Those are the rules and the policies that we have to go by. I absolutely respect, and this did go through the full public process, despite what the delegation said, the full public process. There was no corners cut on this, and everybody's had an opportunity to speak their minds and make their comments all the way through. In this case, I can't listen to or consider when a resident speaks about shadowing or traffic when they think there's going to be an increase in traffic at Salem and Highway 2, or they think traffic will somehow make a left turn out of a right in, right out and go back up a median and cut down Wicks. I can't. I have to go with the traffic reports, the consultant reports that are presented to staff, and that I've read also that they go by when giving their recommendations. They're done by consultants, engineers, planners, people that know all this stuff, not me. Same with all the different reports, whether it be shadowing, whether it be parking, whether it be elevation, whether it be the 45-degree angle, whether it be setbacks, whether it be access, whether it be encroachments. The list can go on forever. And we're not dealing with site plan today, just zoning and official plan amendment. This site is asking for some considerations in the floor plate size. And we are a very environmental oriented council. We've made some very strong statements on greenhouse gas reductions and set very, very aggressive targets. And this building, given that extra floor plate, makes it 50% more efficient, which I find valuable. But what I find most valuable is the public and social benefits. We at the town, at the region, at the Ontario Big City Mayors, unanimously realize that we are in a housing crisis and we need to do something to provide affordable and adequate housing. And this is what we have here. And I know the residents are not supportive because they never are. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's just people, it's emotional. And you know, a house is very, very emotional, very important. I absolutely respect that. However, we can't designate what somebody builds on land that they own. We have to follow the rules. And the public and social benefits to this, I think, far outweigh the loss of a view or some shadowing or something like that. Being on a major transit route, being able to provide lower income housing to people that badly need it for a period of 20 years and having them be able to use transit to get back and forth is something that I think far outweighs on the regional corridor than some of those others. So given all those things, and I just say that, not trying to make excuses, I just want people to understand the thought process is why I'm going to support this. And I will ask for a recorded vote, please, Madam Chair. Madam Clerk, sorry.
Thank you. On the motion, in favor, opposed, Councillor Bauer?
In favor.
Regional Councillor Crawford,
In favor.
Regional Councillor Dyes,
In favor?
Councillor Khan,
In favor.
Regional Councillor Lee,
In favor?
Councillor Tyler Morin,
In favor?
Mayor Collier.
In favor. That passes. Now, I was remiss at the start. I had a very important announcement to make, and I got a little bit sidetracked, so I'm going to do that now. We have a new member of staff joining us, and that is Jason McWilliam, our new deputy clerk. Jason, are you here? Want to show yourself? This is his first day, so there's a little bit of trial by fire from him taking over from Alec. And at the same time, I want to thank our acting deputy clerk, Sarah Moore, for all of her hard work and everything that she has done, stepping in very quickly and taking over seamlessly and keeping us on track through all of our agendas and everything else and all the other things that we throw at you, Sarah. You did a great job on top of all your other duties, running our advisory committees and everything else. So I just want to say welcome to Jason and thank you very much to Sarah on behalf of myself and council. And I think we can give you some clapping. All right, back to the agenda. Now moving on to items of correspondence. Do we have any polls under items of correspondence?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes, please. I'd like to pull number 3 and speak to it, please.
Okay. Any other polls? Okay, on the balance, moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Crawford. So let me pull this up. That the report dated June 20th, 2022, containing items of correspondence be received for information. Those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Khan, item 3.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is about the noise bylaw, traffic bylaw with loud mufflers, and it's asking the regional council request that funding be approved for the decibel monitoring devices. So I've had several meetings with staff, police staff, and they brought to my attention that these equipment takes a lot of additional training, and even though they get that, it's been quite challenging for them. What they're suggesting, one of the reasons, I just want to bring this to your attention, and we can move forward with it if necessary, to curb the behavior. They believe the better option would be the region to adopt a bylaw prohibiting excessive noise from a motor vehicle with a heavy fine, because right now the fines offer little financial deterrence and no demerit points are associated. And this can probably be explored by a nuisance bylaw. So this machine that they're asking to be funded, it's the decibel it's partially measured by the emissions. And to this year, up to now this year, no tickets have been issued for emissions. Most vehicles have been either compliance or have utilized loopholes how they prevent this ticket issuance. So going back to the point that it's highly recommended that the region bring a bylaw for unnecessary noise and implement a heavy fine. So it's something I will be following up with my colleagues and staff and see if we can assist in doing that. But the training is a big deterrent for officers, as nothing much has happened. And listen, I still want to pull and endorse this because we need all the help we can get with noise and mufflers. So anyways, that's my bit on that. Thank you very much for letting me speak on that.
So the motion is to request that we endorse the motion from the region requesting the province to provide funding for decibel measuring machines and training for DRPS.
Yes.
Do we have a seconder? Second by Councillor Tyler Moore. Councillor Crawford, you had your hand up?
Thank you.
So the bylaw that you're asking for the region would be, how would that bylaw, okay. I'll just, never mind. I just have questions because a bylaw that is issued by a body is usually implemented by the bylaw officers. Are they not, Mayor Collier? Not by police?
They are, and that's kind of the catch-22 is we can have a bylaw, but the enforcement is always the problem.
Right.
And when we have, even if police are the enforcing body, they have their 5 tiers of enforcement, and bylaws are generally the bottom when there's nothing else going on, but we can ask.
Right, like a bylaw officer doesn't have the power to pull over a car.
No.
Right, only a police officer can do that. I don't disagree with that, and I think that the province should step forward and they need to do something about this because the officers on the road, it's a very time consuming. We've had officers come to our community meetings to talk about the enforcement, to talk about the tickets that are given out. And one of the reasons why I asked the region to come forward with a statement on the exhaust is to up the cost of the ticket. Because in New York, I think they've actually made the ticket in the thousands of dollars for having their vehicles modified. And I think the maximum ticket you can get here is somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 to $500. And one guy got nailed 3 times with the same ticket, and then finally had his car yanked off the road. So I think in theory, I think what you're saying is absolutely the province needs to take responsibility for this, and the province needs to put the money in behind it so that more officers can be trained, more equipment can be provided. I'm not sure of the terminology of bylaw. That's the only thing that confuses me a bit, but I 100% agree that this is a provincial issue and it needs to be handled by the province. And I really think over the course of this term, many municipalities, I mean, Pickering has got a very similar motion going to the Police Service Board tomorrow on almost word for word for what we had in our council. So most of the municipalities, and including Toronto, have come up with motions to the province to get a handle on this thing. So I 100% agree with that. The wording of the bylaw is just a bit confusing for me, but that's it.
Well, that's not actually part of this. What we have on the floor right now is just endorsing the regional motion requesting the province to provide funding for the measuring devices and the training. What I think you're referring to is going to require an update to the Highway Traffic Act. And that way police can enforce it. And I agree, it needs to be done, not just from a noise perspective, but also when they modify these vehicles, they're basically removing all of the environmental equipment from the vehicle, the catalytic converters and everything else. So they're putting out straight exhaust into the environment at the same time as well. So it's like a 1-2 punch. I mean, not only is it annoying, but it's very detrimental. So I agree. And I think maybe we brought something forward at the town before, and I certainly have no problem bringing it to big city mayors. I think we've actually have dealt with one of these there. I'll ask Samantha about that tomorrow, but I do believe that big city mayors has taken a position on this as well. So now it's up to lobbying our MPPs in the province to actually get them to take some action. So further on the motion to endorse. Question, Councillor Moore, statement?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for letting me in. Happy to second this endorsement with Councillor Khan. Whenever these come up, we need to be there. Residents are absolutely asking us every single day to do something, and I'm glad I see modified vehicles in Durham Region, because I'm sure in Whitby and Pickering they're hearing the same thing. Happy to second this. Glad this is here. Let's get this to the province. We haven't done it yet, and thank you, Mayor, for spearheading it. Big city mayors, much appreciated.
No problem. Anything further?
Can I add one more thing, Mr. Chair? No?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. One of the things the officers said is that the funding for these new devices, it's not being very successful so far. What they're also seeing that the body-worn cameras that we fought so hard for, it's doing quite a good job of recording the level of noise. And if we were to implement a bylaw, a very strict bylaw, it will help. So I'll close with that.
Okay. Anything further? Those in favor of endorsement? Any opposed? I see all hands. That is carried. Okay, that completes correspondence. Moving on to reports. On 8.1.1, Community Affairs and Planning Committee, June 6, 2022. I have moved by Councillor Dye, second by Councillor Tyler Morin, that the Community Affairs and Planning Committee report dated June 6, 2022 be adopted. Questions or comments on the CAP report? No, those in favor? Approval? That is carried. Moving on to the General Government Committee. 8.2.1, moved by Councillor Khan, second by Councillor Crawford, that the General Government Committee report dated June 13th, 2022 be adopted. Question or comments on the GGC? Councillor Lee.
Is this where your amendment comes through, Chair, or is that going to be dealt with at motion?
I'm gonna be moving the amendment under. We still have to suspend the rules to bring it on, so I'm going to do that under motions with everything.
Okay, just want to clarify. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we had asked for a report to come back. We did receive an email this afternoon, so I assume that is close the loop on that. Anything further on the GDC? Nope, those in favor? Approval, that is carried. Moving down to 8.3, summary of advisory activities, moved by Councillor Dye, second by Councillor Bauer, that the summary of advisory committee activities report dated June 20th, 2022 as attached to the meeting agenda be received for information, and that the recommendations contained therein be referred to staff where applicable. Questions or comments on the advisory committee reports? Hearing none, those in favor of receipt? Any opposed? None opposed, that's carried. Departmental reports, 8.4.1, Ajax Fire Emergency Services 2022-02 DCL Corporation Fire Reimbursement, moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Councillor Bauer, that the report on the net expenditure of $114,282.92 net of HST rebate for costs associated with the DCL Corporate Fire Dominion Color capital account number 1025811 be received for information. Questions or comments? Those in favor of receipt? That is carried. Thank you. 8.4.2 APL 2022-02 Library Service Spring 2022 update. Moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Khan, that the Library Services 2022 Spring update be received for information. Questions or comments? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to Cleo, I just want to confirm, this is more or less highlighting what happened in the spring, not what's going to happen in the spring, because obviously spring is ending, we're going into summer. I just want to make sure timing wise, like, should we be moving up these updates earlier on into the year?
Through the mayor to Regional Councillor Lee, the library board has put together this report to update council on some of the major initiatives that the library has done between January and June that support the town of Ajax's strategic initiatives. At the end of the report, we always include what's coming up next. So you'll see our next big push is the TD Summer Reading Club. I would encourage you all with young children to sign up and help defeat summer brain drain or the summer slide by encouraging children to read over the summer. And just a little shout out and props for the library. We do have a virtual guest this year, July 19th. Chris Hadfield will be joining us and other Durham libraries to, promote the love of astronomy, the stars, and of course, as always, reading.
Great. And that also applies to adults as well. I probably haven't read a book in a very long time. My last question, Chair, and I just want to highlight is the drag queen story time. I saw on social media that we, had a vocal minority, we'll call it, of people who weren't happy with the event. But it looks like 97 participants. I was wondering if you could just very quickly speak on the success of the event and whether we'll keep going with it.
Absolutely. Drag Queen Storytime is presented in partnership with Youth Pride Durham as well as Durham Children's Aid Society, a very successful event. We had 100 registrants, which was our max. That totally filled our room. 97 people showed up in person, certainly our largest in-person event since we've returned in COVID. And you're right, there is a small minority of people who are very vocal online, but that is why we continue to have these very important programs so that we can spread understanding, love, and our commitment to that community. So overall, I would say a very successful program. And of course, we will continue to have programs just like this in the future.
Thank you very much for the highlights, and thank you, Chair, for the questions.
No problem. Any further comments or questions on the library report? Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. I love this report. I love the update. Thank you so much. You forget all the things that happen and the support that the library provides to our residents. So I want to say thank you. It's a great reminder. And I was very excited to hear that there will be a 70th birthday party coming up in the fall. I don't know if my question would be, is there anything you can share with us, or is that going to be a nice big surprise?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bauer, I don't have details to share at the moment. We are still on the planning phases, but I can share that we have launched our commemorative library bag. So please visit our library and support us, as well as commemorative library cards. So we're happy to offer anyone who is interested a complimentary library card commemorating our 70 years of library service here in Ajax.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I'll be there.
Anything further on the library report? Okay, it's moved and seconded. Those in favor of receipts? That is unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. Let me go back and find where we were. We've already dealt with 8.4.3. Next is regional council reports. Councillor Crawford, I knew you had them before, then Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to touch quickly on the Works Committee. I was shocked, actually, that under the waste management, there was no report, so I asked them for an update on the yard waste pickup. That has been the bane of our existence for the past 3 to 4 weeks. And interestingly enough, I found out that day that Whitby and Oshawa do not use Miller Waste as a service. And so here the board had no idea that we were having these problems. Anyway, so bless you. So anyway, we did get an update from the region on, and it appears that yard waste will be back to normal as of the next cycle. So the next cycle being the 27th, I believe, is the next week for yard waste pickup. And our intention is at council under yard waste that Mayor Collier and I will be pulling, asking for an update on the contract with Miller Waste and the details of it, when it's coming due, and just having, it'll likely go in camera because I don't believe that's something that we can talk about in public, but that is the intention at council. Just a quick update from Vision Zero. The leading pedestrian interval locations have been implemented, and we have 2 in Ajax, which is Harwood and Hunt and Harwood and King Crescent. They are now activated. That simply gives pedestrians a head start on crossing the road before the light changes for vehicle traffic. And there's going to be some changes to the community safety zone policy update in the next month or two, so probably won't have an update for that before September. And unfortunately, we had our first fatality of the year on the regional road, May 19th, when a 16-year-old boy was struck and killed while riding his bicycle at the intersection of Simcoe and Wentworth in the city of Oshawa. So our deepest sympathies to the family that was involved in that. And that is my update.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, you were next.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to give a highlight on the municipal comprehensive review. It was finally decided at last month's regional council meeting. I think it was the record meeting. It went, I think, a total like 13 and a half, 14 hours. I could be exaggerating. I literally lost track of time. And unfortunately, in spite of Team Ajax's best efforts, the region ultimately decided to go against staff and expert recommendations and to just sprawl the heck out of Durham over the next 30 years. So yeah, we had tons of delegations, tons of evidence, tons of facts, but unfortunately that did not sway, I think it was 16 councillors, and it went the other way. So we have a 2A is what they're calling it. And I just want to give a shout out to actually Mayor Collier, who was valiantly working the phones the entire 13 hours, calling, texting various councillors of regional council. In vain. But regardless, pleading the case, because Yeah, it just bears repeating that even in it was a losing effort, but definitely the man tried his best, and so yeah, we'll have to see over the next few years how that impacts all the decisions that we've been making up to this point. And then just on a planning point of view, I also want to point out that Toronto Global came back to the region. So Toronto Global, for those you don't remember, was actually one of my first tasks at the region on the planning committee of just stating Ajax's position of just it's a lead generation we've been paying into for many years, and as a whole, the region's paid upwards over, I think, almost $2 million, and we received 0 jobs. So I actually think this month we received 6 jobs. So generally, we spent all this money for 6 jobs. So Toronto Global's come back to renegotiate terms because very similar to the Durham region, there's other regions, pretty much any region not named Toronto, who were kind of upset with the fact that all the leads, all the businesses seem to be settling in Toronto. So why are we paying this? Even in spite of that, I mean, the reduced cost is $50,000. I still think that is not the best use of the Durham's money. And I'd love to see our own sort of lead gen and internal global acquisition, business acquisition team go to work. So we'll see. I think that will also be decided at the region, which I will unfortunately not be there. Councillor Tyler Moore will be there in my stead. But yes, it is 2 cases where Ajax gets to say, I told you so. One in the MCR and one in Toronto Global. But I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
We've been doing that for years, Councillor Lee. Sorry, Councillor Crawford, do you have a question or do you want to further to your report? We'll do questions after.
Just a comment to Regional Councillor Lee's report.
Okay.
If that's okay. I just wanted to say that the roundtable met last week and they definitely stated their disdain on council's decision and were thoroughly insulted on the fact that we really did put a lot of work into coming up with a statement and a decision making, and a subcommittee was struck by the chair of the region, of which added about 7 new meetings into my schedule. And yet the region chose to ignore the recommendations from all of the advisory committees, all of the delegations, and regional council chose to go in a completely different direction. And they made their voice very, very clear on Friday of how they felt about that. These are not stupid people, they're intelligent people, and they were insulted to the core.
I think that'll happen anytime. Staff, all the advisory committees, 16 delegations, over 100 letters written, and all the environmental groups are completely ignored. I think we all kind of feel that way. Any other regional reports before I go? Okay, I just want a couple just on the finance. We had a delegation from Grandview. Obviously, this is not uncommon given the delay. We know costs have gone up considerably, so their costs have gone up, and they requested from the region an additional $1.5 million contribution towards, and that was approved by finance. That will come forward to the region next week as well. And to transit, we had a presentation and adopted recommendations to move the fleet to full electric by 2036, I believe. This will have an incredible reduction in our greenhouse gas emissions and allow us to reach our targets many, many, many years earlier. We acknowledge that the buses are more expensive, but over time with maintenance of fuel savings, and also the EV buses do last longer than the conventional buses. So the fleet will be throughout the time when the existing diesels wear out, transitioned over, but we will be going to full electric over the next decade or so, which is pretty great. And I will leave it there. Any questions on any of the regional council reports? Great job. I have the resolution here, moved by Councillor Khan, second by Councillor Dyes, that the regional council reports on June 20th, 2022 be received for information. Those in favor of receipt? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on now to motions, I will turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Crawford because I think my name is on the next couple of motions.
Okay. The first one is on temporary replacement of regional council.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And we talked about this before. I have already sat down with all members of council. And we talked a little bit about should we be reelected? What are some of the things that we're interested in next term? And it was very apparent that all the local councillors would like to have the opportunity to be the alternate at regional council. Like Councillor Lee said, Councillor Tyler Moran will be standing in for him at regional council next week. But the Municipal Act only allows for one alternate to be named for the entire 4-year term. It doesn't allow any type of rotation. So Councillor Tyler Moran has done a great job, but only he has the opportunity, and Councillor Bauer and Councillor Khan have not. So we feel it's more fair if we were allowed to be able to rotate that through, so everybody has the same opportunity and everybody can experience and learn what it's like to be at the region. So this is just simply requesting that the province amend that small piece of the Municipal Act and allow that rotation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Khan, you are seconding this. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, it is. The training is imperative for local councillors because, I mean, it's the natural progression of a local councillor to move up to regional councillor when that time allows. And it is very necessary that, like Councillor Tyler Moran did have a great opportunity, albeit COVID did kneecap him for a couple of years. But moving forward, if re-elected, I would love to, if re-elected again, I would love to share that time with my other councillor, Councillor Bauer. But thank you for bringing this forward, Mr. Mayor and Madam Chair. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Is there any other person that would like to, Councillor Tyler Moran?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Deputy Mayor, I should say. And I just want to say thank you to Mayor Collier for choosing me as the alternate for this term. Absolutely agree with Councillor Khan. It's a great opportunity, and I absolutely have enjoyed it. And it's a very different perspective. And I expressed to Councillor Khan, and I hope Councillor Bauer knows as well, I fully support this. I would be, I think it's great that we could share this similar to what they do with the Deputy Mayor. So I'm in full support, and I think both Councillor Bauer, Councillor Khan would make excellent alternates. So I fully support this. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Just clarification, I didn't choose you, council chose you. It was through council resolution.
Thank you, council.
If there's no other questions, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? That motion passes. Thank you. The next one, hang on. Oh, the use of electric kick scooters. Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And this is something that we had a delegation at the region on. These are becoming more and more prevalent. I recently had the opportunity, I was in Vancouver and in Calgary, and these things are everywhere in these heavily urbanized areas, as well as all over Europe, many places. It's just an alternate form of ride sharing. We see in Toronto where they have the bicycles that you can sort of swipe your phone and take and get to your destination and then drop it off. This is a similar type thing, only they are motorized. They are really taking off. And I think this would be something that we should look at for access from our GO station to our waterfront, to our trail networks, to our different points around the town. Just offering another mode of non-vehicular traffic or non-vehicular travel, get people out of their cars, and again, an alternate form of transportation. This is just asking staff to look at the feasibility. One of the questions that I did ask to the delegation of the region was, what's in it for us? Because we're not going to just create a bylaw and allow them to come here and use our infrastructure and our 120 kilometers of paved trails and all our other stuff that we've paid money for and not have some sort of community benefit. And they didn't really have an answer for that. So that would be something I would insist on, but this is just asking staff to look into that, look into the feasibility. Is it something that would work for us, and report back to council?
Sounds good. Regional Councillor Lee?
Echoing just what the mayor's saying, I think there's tons and tons of tourism potential built with these electric kick scooters, especially with the way Ajax is built out, especially with our size. It's all to our advantage to examine the possibility and the feasibility of this. So for me, it's a no-brainer motion, and we hope we can count on your support. Thank you, Chair.
Regional Councilor, or sorry, Councilor Tyler Morin. Your promotion.
That's what we were just talking about. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Crawford. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So I'm glad to see this come to fruition, and I will be supporting it. The other sort of side to this is we've had a lot of residents, some residents call us about scooters that are going up on the sidewalk and people riding them with no helmets, that kind of thing. So I'm glad to see that we would have a standardized highway traffic e-scooter rules and regulations, you know, that we could all get behind. And yes, use them for all the reasons that are in this motion, but also make it a lot safer because some people they're all over the place with these. So glad to see this come and glad to see that things will be straightened out and the parameters will be put up. Thank you.
Regional Councilor Dies.
Thank you, Chair. And I agree with Councilor Moran. I think it's really important as these are just sort of rolling out here in Durham region, and we're starting to see more and more of them, that we let people know what the rules are, and it's according to the Highway Traffic Act. So, you know, it's the same as riding a bicycle. You have to be very careful. You can't ride on a sidewalk, and you know, the pedestrians have to be taken care of, and that they have the right of way as well. Just like anything else, every vehicle has to give them the right of way. So it's really important, as Councilor Moran said, because they're moving quite quickly, and it's a safety issue, but people also have to understand what the rules are. So I think it's very beneficial, though, for many people who have mobility issues as well, that are able to get around a lot quicker to do, you know, whatever errands they need. So this is a great way, not just for tourism, but for the community to get to and from where they need to go. So I do support this. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'll just say they're banned in our trailer park because they actually go faster than the cars. They're allowed to go, so it's just interesting. But anyway, I'm in favor of anything that gets people out of cars. So just calling the question, all in favor? Thank you, that passes. Next one, Madam Clerk. Uh-oh. Okay, waiving development charges for the new Grandview. Mayor Collier.
The interest on development charges.
The interest, my bad, sorry. The interest, the big difference.
As I just spoke about in my regional report, Grandview has ready to go on the ground next year, but there's been some delays. They are not asking for any waiving or anything of development charges. They are absolutely paying their development charges, but the town of Ajax incurs interest on development charges if it's not processed by, or if they don't move ahead by a certain time, and they can't till next spring. So what they've approached us and asked if the town would consider on a one-off basis just waiving the interest on the development charges. My understanding in speaking with finance is it's 20,000. We've put 30 in the motion just to be safe. And this motion is slightly different from the one I circulated. The clerk department did make a couple of housekeeping, but ultimately it is the same, does the same thing as what I had originally sent out. So just asking for us to not charge the interest payments on those DCs, but of course we will still collect the full DCs, and this will help this very important venture get started in Ajax.
Thank you. Councillor Khan, did you want to say something?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Crawford. Mayor Collier, I thank you so much for including me on this motion. Grandview is something of pride for Ajax, another big achievement, I would say, in our term. And I would do almost anything to support them to get this off the ground and support the goodness they're going to bring to our community. So again, thank you, Mayor Collier for including me in this motion. Thank you, Madam Chair. I hope we do have support of council for this.
Any other comments on this one? I think that's a no-brainer for us, but all in favor? Great. The next one, you were seconding it. Do you want me to stay or do you want to take it over?
No, you stay.
Stay? Okay. This one is about not healing forest.
Electricity.
Electricity, yes. Sorry. There we go. Utility response to May 21st weather event. Regional Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's incredibly important to give eLexicon a chance to provide more or less a State of the Union to residents over the May 21st storm. It was a once in a generation storm. I literally in my lifetime had never experienced, 7 minutes of rain and wind cause that much extensive damage to, the infrastructure of our hydro. And yet there was. And don't get me wrong, I maintain eLexicon did a phenomenal job of just, keeping constant contact via Twitter and social media and their phone lines, pivoting when needed, staying on top of pole, replacements. It was a Herculean task, and I absolutely think they did a wonderful job. That said, I also think it's important for residents to have an outlet to ask questions either through their counselors or themselves of how can this be prevented? As a council, what should we be advocating for to ensure this type of incident, we don't see that kind of damage? Because as we all know on this council, we saw it with the winter event and now we saw it with the spring, and God forbid we have a similar summer and fall events, but we're seeing these once in a generation storms more frequently, and we have to make sure we are protecting ourselves and future-proofing ourselves. And I just want to give the CEO or whoever the designated is of eLexicon a chance to just explain to council what happened, what they learned, and what's the plan for the future. And so hopefully we can get them coming through the fall. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, Mayor Collier.
Thank you. I won't repeat. We had a meeting with Lexicon last week, and I did point out a couple of the things being, the outage map, which needed some work. And I used the example of our snowplow map and how we took that down and revamped it. And that is one of the things they're going to look at. And we did discuss some other things like maybe looking at servicing some of those houses in South Ajax and those established neighborhoods from the road rather than the power lines down the back between the houses that are hard to access with the trucks. But again, I agree with Councillor Lee. I think we should be having, or at least asking them to come and just give us sort of the state of the organization and where things are going. So it was a lot of work, but and I'm sure it's going to happen again. So let's learn from our mistakes. But I do want to hear what they have planned.
Okay. Is there any other comments from council? If not, Councillor Gahn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want you to know, for a grown man born in 1969, I was humiliated that I had to Google the word derecho storm. But I just want to thank you for adding that to my vocabulary. I never heard the term before. Thank you for that. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Good for you for looking it up. I didn't even look it up. So, any other comments? All in favor? Excellent. Thank you. Back to you, Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Crawford. Great job. Let me just find where we are. Next is the Healing Forest, Councillor Bauer and Crawford.
Thank you so much, Mayor Collier. The Indigenous Healing and Community Garden that we are going to have in Ajax, that was one of my wish list items. And it's a wish. And of course, it's hard to make a wish come true. However, I think it was also the wish of many other great members of the community. And that helped this become a reality. From the Mayor's Gala that funded it, to the Ajax Pickering Hospital and Foundation that donated the land and some expertise in design, to the town staff that created a fantastic committee of lots of different people and their expertise in coordinating the effort to build it, to Indigenous leaders who came and gave lessons to us on why we need one, what the purpose is, and blessed us and blessed the land. So when I heard about this opportunity for designating our Indigenous garden as a healing forest, I really wanted that to happen because it brings recognition. So the Healing Forests is an organization to create space across the country for these outdoor spaces where people can come together to learn, to speak, to meditate, to listen to stories, to work together towards truth and reconciliation, and listen to elders and teachings. And I think that's what's going to happen here. So when I heard that, I thought we need to do that. I want that recognition. There are only 11. I believe there are 11 healing forests right now, and the goal is to add 10 more to the country in the next short time frame, and I would love for Ajax to be one of those. So I think it's a very important thing, and I ask for your support, and I thank you. That's everything I have to say, Mayor Collier.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, I every time I listen to Elder Kim Wheatley talk about their connection with nature, I'm amazed. Their absolute respect for every leaf, every twig, every breath of wind that goes through. It literally blows me away the way they have that connection with nature. And I remember during the pandemic, I spent a lot of time in Greenwood, and I don't know, for me, it was my way of escaping the craziness of what we were going through. And I think there definitely is a connection in being out in the forest and being around nature and having that direct connection. I didn't know it at the time, and it's only been through listening to her talk that I realized what that actually does for your soul and for your spirit. And I think that it's just amazing. I'm very, very proud that we're able to have something like this happen right here in Ajax. So I'm very, very proud to support this.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this motion? No? Happy to support. Those in favor? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Let me find out where we are. Next one is a traffic calming warrant report to council. Councillor Lee and Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Chair. So it's, we're nearing the end of our first term of council, and we have, I think, 4 brand new councillors. And I think without a doubt, one of the most common issues we see on our emails and calls is through traffic calming. Without a doubt, every resident of Ajax thinks they live on the most dangerous street. And hyperbolically, there's so many speeding drivers. And so we have this built-in traffic calming warrant system where we collect data twice a year, I believe, once in the spring, once in the fall. And one of the gaps I noticed as a councillor was I could get a notification in January saying, oh, can we please look at my street? It's so dangerous. And I would send it off to staff. And in a sense, it would kind of go off into the ether, and I'd forget about it because let's say the spring collection happens in April from January. And then, staff needs a process report. I may not get that information back till like August, October. And I would absolutely forget the initial request because I received so many emails. So I'm someone who loves order and procedure and, more importantly, transparency. So this motion was created under the issue of I would love staff to just create a reporting mechanism so that we could see once and for all, twice a year, once for the spring collection, once for the fall collection, what are the results of this traffic calming warrant? So we can see which roads are the ones in need of traffic calming. And more importantly, we can communicate that back to our residents. Because again, we always feel that our roads are the most dangerous ones. Here, we can finally give them factual, scientific numbers and data that's either supports or does not support that case. But again, I wanted to kind of take it out of the, I feel like, to this is factually what it is, and it gives staff a chance to tell council, and then we can make our decisions from there. So I think it's an incredibly important thing, and I would definitely love council support of this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Khan, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Reiterating what Regional Councillor Lee said, and we did have a bit of lull in the transportation, and things get lost in the weeds sometimes. But that being said, I do want to welcome and give a shout out to our new manager of transportation planning, Mr. Deval Panja. He's been very easy to work with, and Regional Councillor Lee, I know he's going to work hard with us to get these reports updated and keep us all, the 7 of us, in the loop. Thank you for letting me speak on this, and thank you for including me in this, Regional Councillor Lee.
Councillor Crawford.
I have a question about Roadwatch does road boards, like speed boards through the police. We do our speed boards through our traffic. Do the two coordinate, and can that report include what's being found out through Roadwatch? It's a question and maybe a friendly amendment. I'm not really sure, but I think there's valuable information that's being tracked through Roadwatch and the police. And I wonder if it's all coordinated back with our own traffic management.
Councillor Lee or Councillor Khan, are you able to?
I think when I have to reach out to Director Romanowski, in this case, I'm not sure whether we actually coordinate Roadwatch data with our data collection.
Mr. Romanowski?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Lee. That's a good question. I'd have to follow up with Deval. I don't think it hurts to add it in if council wants to, and if it doesn't jive, then we can kind of deal with it separately and follow up with Councillor Crawford directly.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, is the more information we get, the best we can service the roads, right? I think there is coordination there, but I'm not 100% sure. So if we can, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So Chair, if it's okay then, rather than make it a friendly, I think ultimately the resolution is for staff to report back to council in Q1 2023 with the reporting process. So I think it's safe to assume that Director Romanowski will take that away and include it in that presentation.
I would tend to agree, Mr. Romanowski. You have that direction?
I just wrote it down on my agenda. Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Crawford, for the recommendations.
Anything further on this report or on this motion? Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in very quickly. Very happy to see this and will absolutely support. I think this is going to speak to the questions we get from residents nearly daily. And rather than us, I don't want to use the word badgering, but poking staff for information all the time, if we know these intervals are coming regularly, then that really helps in the process, because we wait, we get the information, then we go back. And it happens enough so that right now there's no real formality. And this now will help in that process. I believe I can speak to that. Happy to support. Thanks for bringing it forward.
Anything further? Those in support of the motion? That's carried. Moving on next, we have a motion to suspend the rules of procedure. Moved by Councillor Bauer, second by Councillor Tyler Moore, that the rules of procedure be suspended to allow the introduction of 3 motions without notice: an emergency alert for vulnerable persons who go missing, municipal asset management plan grant submission, and an amendment to the Town of Ajax investment policy. Those in support of suspending the rules to allow the motions without notice? I see all hands. That is carried. Moving on to the first one, we have emergency alert for vulnerable persons who go missing. Councillor Bauer and Councillor Lee, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Yeah, I think I felt that this was important to include tonight. It was timely. This was a tragedy of a young boy, Draven Graham, because an alert was not, well, not because, but questioning whether the Amber Alert could have been used and would the outcome have been different. I actually spoke with someone whose son was in the same class as Draven, and you know, this is something that is not new. The request from families with vulnerable persons to have an alert system created specifically for them. The Amber Alert was not used because it did not fit the requirements of someone who was abducted by someone that they knew. So sorry, I'm rambling. I think this was a tragedy. It leads to questions about could this tragedy have been prevented had there been a system in place. So there's been a lot of call for action, an online petition. Actually, this motion says 67,000 signatures. That was on Friday. Today, just before the meeting, it's over 75,000 signatures now. So I think it's important as council that we request the province, just like the Air Force, to review the current Amber Alert program and criteria to include missing and at-risk vulnerable persons, or establish a new program, and that we circulate the motion to said parties. So I think it's very sad, very tragic, and whatever we can do to not let this happen again, I think we should do. So that is the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Would you like to speak to this?
Please, Chair. So in Durham Region, we have a coalition of parents of autistic or special needs children. They're called the Durham Crew, affectionately. And, I heard from many of them across the board. They messaged me, I'm sure they messaged all of us and saying, this is exactly what we need. It's problematic. It's hard enough. It's already a lot of strain on families to take care of, people with these special needs. And then just I can't imagine the fear and paralysis that happens if someone were to go missing. And I absolutely, as a parent, who has the Amber Alert system at my disposal, I imagine, those parents with special needs children would just love another mechanism to just get all eyes on it, feel safety first, and then we can figure out the rest later. I also want to just personally thank Councillor Nicholson, Brian Nicholson from Oshawa, who more or less wrote this motion that we ended up copying. He was taking the lead on that. And so I just want to thank him. And of course, staff for, throwing this together in a very short amount of time, and Councillor Bauer for allowing me to second. So hopefully we can get your support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, those in favor? That is unanimous. Moving on to our next item, I will turn the chair back over to Deputy Mayor Crawford for the next two.
Okay, the floor is yours, Mayor Collier.
Thank you. This is a real easy one. I'll be very quick. Free money, but requires a council resolution. So here it is.
So Tyler Moore, do you have anything to add?
Yes, very quickly. At no time has it ever been more important to get alternate sources of revenue streams, and this is grant-based. This is great. I don't know, other people in council, yourself and your Collier, Joanne Dice, if there's ever been a gap between our service levels, what those cost, and the amount of property tax. It's very complicated, but that gap is growing and it's scary. So I'm very happy to support this. Glad we're getting creative and hopefully see more of this kind of revenue. Thank you, Mayor Collier, for including this in this motion.
Any other comments? If not, all in favor? That carries. Mayor Collier?
Thank you. The next one is a revision to the investment policy, and I circulated this to council just before the meeting. I'm sorry for the late delay. At the GDC meeting on the 13th of June, I asked some questions with regards to our investment policy update. And upon review of the policy and the response to my questions from the treasurer today, it appears, and I'm a little embarrassed I didn't catch this when we first approved this November 22nd last year, but we have sort of tied our hands with the current goals and objectives of the policy. And I don't believe that it achieves sort of the spirit of what council was trying to do when we commissioned this review and this update of the investment policy. And if you read it as written, it reads 2.1A under goals and objectives, the fundamental investment goal objective is to ensure the safety and security of the investment principal, period. And what that means is GICs and fixed income, high interest savings accounts, and that's it. And that's where the entire $158 million of our reserve funds is sitting today, as per the update we had last week. And I don't think that was the intent of our council. I think we've identified we've got a capital project budget that is, well, we're in a 6.7% inflation environment. And we talked about earlier Grandview and the project cost increases. And I'm hearing it every day from people who are investing in our town and needing to build buildings. And, you know, it takes a couple of years to get through the planning process, and it adds about 50 to 100% of the cost these days in land value, carrying costs, everything else. Well, in order for us to continue to fund the roads and all of our capital projects, we're experiencing those same increases. So if we have a 6.7% inflation on us, and we're only making 1 or 2 or 3% on our reserve funds, we are actually losing money. So what I propose is adding the wording, instead of investment principal, add of the funds identified as treasury and short term, which according to the consultant that we hired that presented to us on November 22nd, is absolutely where short-term funds should be. And short-term is identified in their report as treasury, 0 to 12 months, and short-term, 12 months to 5 years. Over 5 years to 10 years is identified as medium, and 10 years plus, if you're 10 years out, is identified as long-term. And I don't think any of us expected our medium and long-term funds to be locked in GICs and high interest savings accounts. That was not the intent, and that's not what's identified in the asset mix in the policy that we approved. So I think that simply adding the words of the funds identified as treasury and short term, and at the end, funds identified as medium term and long term shall follow the asset mix as set out in the policy, will untie the hands of the treasurer and allow those investments of the portfolio for the mid and long term that we desperately need to meet our goals long term and not have to pass on that complete cost to the taxpayers eventually to fund our capital goals. I don't think I need to say too much more about that. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.
Regional Councillor Lee.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Ultimately, is if you take short term as our checking account, so to speak, and medium and long term as our savings account, then yeah, we're not going to necessarily be put ourselves in a position where we're drastically trying to find money for the short-term projects. But for these medium and long-term projects where we have this money just sitting there and it's quite a bit of money, I think it's actually prudent to look into different investment strategies. And because they are medium and long-term, it allows us to weather, economic downturns and whatnot. But more importantly, for the most part, we all believe the market will steadily climb up, and hopefully our money in return will steadily climb up as well. So I'm very glad the mayor found this, loophole, so to speak, and we're closing it up. And more importantly, I'm sure our director of finance will keep us updated towards how, the success of this policy. And because we are using medium and long term as a council, we can always adjust if needed. But I think right now it allows us to be more flexible with how we use our investment money. So I think it's a very prudent course of action. Thank you, Chair.
Madam Chair, can I just add one thing quickly that I forgot? Just that the item B speaks to liquidity. And I did ask that question last week, and I just want to point out that the one investment program that we approved, and I'm not looking at changing the portfolio or the policy at all, just this wording of the investment goal and objective, because the liquidity is still there. Any investments under the one investment program are liquid within a matter of a couple of days. So the liquidity isn't touched regardless if it's short, medium, or long term.
Okay.
Just want to point that out. Thank you.
Regional Councillor Dyes.
Thank you. I would just like to get Director Valentin's, input on this change. I know that we have to be very careful in how we invest our money, and there's always rules attached to that as well for obvious reasons. So I just wonder, I know that their staff are looking at also reviewing the policy and if this is in line with what they had envisioned.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Dyes. Through the mayor, I guess it doesn't hurt to add these words to the policy, to the objectives. I feel that the investment principle, whether it's short-term, medium-term, long-term, our goal is always to ensure the safety and security of the investment principle. By putting money out into a long-term means we could weather volatility in the markets, but we're not requiring those funds to be pulled out in the short term. So even by putting it out in the long term, we would still be looking to ensure the safety and security of that investment principal. So I think the objective, the number one objective there, by ensuring that safety and security of the investment principal still holds. It holds for all of the investments, all of the short, medium, long term. It's the requirement if there is a large amount of money that is required in the short term. It's probably not the best practice to put it out in the long term, but if you don't require it in the short term, then it is probably best to put it out into the long term to try and earn the better returns.
So if your department's going to be reviewing this, when will you be looking to finish that review?
We'll be reviewing it probably into 2023. The investment consultant that we had used in November, I am still speaking with that individual. We would like to refine and look at the requirements. We don't have a full-time investment portfolio specialist on staff. So some of the requirements there I don't have that expertise myself either. I fully admit that. So I will be reaching out to the investment consultant to ensure that we're properly investing.
That's good to know. Thank you so much.
CAO Baker, you've popped into the screen. Did you want to say something?
Thank you, Regional Councillor Crawford. I just want to make sure that we're clear as to, in my view, what the investment goals and objectives are. The current investments of $35 million in one investment and the GICs that are being held and so on are this particular principle is not why they're there. They are there because I had meetings with the treasurer this week. She made these principles that are here in front of you are there to guide her decision making as she's investing. So, in discussions as we talked about last week, where we wanted to stay liquid for the Lexicon shares and how much we need to stay liquid. The issue that I see with the policy, and I absolutely believe that it needs to be reviewed, is further on in the policy where it talks about where the tranches are with the maximums for short-term, long-term, and medium term, and the requirement for those particular maximums in any type of an environment. So my personal view is that I would prefer to see the policy reviewed as a whole and come back to council after we have some time to look at it. But I'm committed to meet with the mayor and the treasurer to talk about what's available to us today with any type of equity investments. And I don't think that this particular clause holds us back from doing that. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Is there any other comments from council?
I'll just quickly to that. And thank you for that input. But the fact of the matter is we are 100% invested in fixed income. And that's not what we chose as a council. We just set up this policy 7 months ago. And we hired a consultant to do it because we recognized we didn't have the staff expertise. I'm not aware that we have extended that contract with that consultant, but that's something that I guess we can discuss next week. But right now, we have 100% of our assets sitting on the sidelines in fixed income, short term, as per the policy we approved. And the policy we approved has minimums and maximums for each different classification that are not being met today with the current asset mix. This council has given no direction formally on keeping funds on the sideline for purchase of any shares that may come available in the future. We haven't done it. If we're going to do it, we're going to have a meeting and we're going to discuss it behind closed doors, and that's where we'll discuss that, but we haven't done that. So this right now, the report that we got last week is not technically, according to the goals and objectives, but it's not according to the minimums and the maximums that we've set out in the investment policy. And the only way to do that is to make this minor change to the wording, because otherwise, and I've had this reviewed since today as well by a third party, having the words investment principal means fixed income only. And this is applying to 100% of our $158 million portfolio. And that's just wrong if you ask any planner. And I would bet every one of our RSPs are not sitting in savings accounts. I would bet they're invested in long term, which is what we have to look at. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Regional Councillor Dyes.
Thank you, Chair. So my question then to staff would be, is that not what we will be doing when we review this by 2023? Making sure that we're doing it properly and asking the experts on municipal government what we need to do.
Through the chair, yes, we will be looking at that to ensure that we're meeting all the requirements.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions or comments on this? Seeing none. Oh, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a question to ask for clarification. So by making these changes, is the intent to make fund switches at this time as well?
Through the chair, we would look to increase or diversify our portfolio into some equities, into some long term. The consultant back in November in the report that was provided did recommend a phased approach to take advantage of dollar cost averaging. So that's something that I'd be looking to do to build up, because right now the markets are low. We don't know if this is bottom or if it will continue to go lower. So the hope is, and the intent is always to buy low, sell high. So by getting in, it's really difficult to time the market. It does look like it's on sale right now, but as I said, it could go even lower. So we'd look to get into the markets and do that on a phased in approach.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay, one opposed. Okay, that carries. And back to you, Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Crawford. Let me just go back to my agenda here. That concludes the motions. Moving on to bylaws. Oh, sorry, wrong page. Moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Bauer, the bylaws number 41-2022 to 50-2022 be read a first, second, third time and passed. Questions on the bylaws? Those in favor of approval? Unanimous, that is carried. So the confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor Khan, second by Councillor Tyler Morin, that bylaw number 51-2022 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its meeting held on June 20th, 2022 be read a first, second, third time and passed. Those in favor of the confirming bylaw?
Apologies, Mr. Mayor. We've skipped over item 12 through.
Thank you. Yep, notice. Yes, we did. Thank you, Madam Clerk. See, that's doing a great job. Item 12, any notice of motion? Councillor Lee.
I know the answer to this, but just in case anyone's watching at home, just to confirm, even in spite of being during the election, so to speak, be writ, we will be having September, October meetings, or just September meetings? How does this work?
Madam Clerk.
Just a September meeting cycle, Councillor Lee.
Okay, thank you.
Any notice of motion? No. Moving on to new business and announcements. Councillor Tyler Morin.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Please join Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford and myself, Councillor Rob Tana-Morin, to discuss Ward 1 community meeting, Ward 1 community issues at our upcoming virtual ward meeting on Monday, June 27, 2022 at 7 p.m. Always get a good turnout. Would love everyone to come out again. Online via Zoom, registration required. All of our social media, the links are, so we'd love to have everybody come out. This is our last ward meeting of the term. I believe we've had close to 40, if not 40. So I'd love to see everybody there. Thank you.
Next was Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. We should have used this raise hand feature a lot sooner. It's really convenient. Two things. So one is on a business side, and that is, I guess this would be a question to staff was, so I believe Councillor Dyes asked for a site plan, I guess, update regarding the Kingston development that just happened. I was wondering if Councillor Khan and I could request a similar update to the Medallion development, because I think that's probably a bit more further along and might be getting close to the point where a site plan is imminent. I think we have to ask, or else, right, for this.
Okay, Mr. Romanowski.
Through the chair to Councillor Lee. So what's the question exactly? That you'd like an update on the Medallion site plan when it comes in, or when we're going through the planning site plan review process for that development. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Yep. Okay, no problem.
Great. Thank you. And now on to announcements. In Ward 2 on July 1st, our award-winning Town of Ajax Recreation and staff, it has a fantastic in-person July Canada Day extravaganza. There's gonna be activities, children's obviously games and activities, cultural performances. I think there's a sensory area too for those people who have sensory needs. It's gonna be a fantastic event. More importantly, there'll be shuttles as well. And I believe the shuttles will be at the Rec Center, Ajax Town Hall, and the Go parking off of O'Brien Court. So we definitely hope to see everyone there. It'll be the first kind of large, big event that we've done in a very, very long time. And it's going to be fantastic. And we look forward to celebrating with all our residents in Ward 2, all for the low, low price of $0. Thank you, Jared.
Thank you. Next, I think I saw Councillor Bauer. Were you next? Go ahead.
Thank you very much. A couple of things I wanted to, if anybody's still watching, just make a reminder that on Wednesday, June 22nd, at 7 o'clock is the Ajax Housing Strategy Phase 1 Background Report Public Open House. It is a virtual event. You can find more information on the town's website about that. Very interesting information, so hopefully you'll come out to that. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that, which I forgot to mention during my motion on healing forests, that June is National Indigenous Peoples Month. And the timeliness of the motion is tomorrow is National Indigenous Peoples Day. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Excellent. Further, Councillor Dyes.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to welcome the veterans from overseas that are here in Ajax visiting us, and they're from the Association for the Battle of the River Plate. They visited us several times before, and we have a great relationship with them. And they're here for some street dedications. There's some tomorrow, and I think that in the day after that, I believe. And also there is a parade and a luncheon at the Legion. And if anybody's interested, I'm sure they'd love for you to come and see them and speak to them. They're very excited about the street dedications, and they're very proud to be here to receive those honors. So they would love to talk to you and love to have you drop by, and it's a great opportunity to learn the history of the town. So please come and join us for those celebrations. Thank you.
Thank you. And the parade starts at 12 o'clock on Hunt Street and ends at the Legion for anybody that wants to attend. Any further notices? Councillor Khan?
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to bring forth, if anybody's listening, or you'll see the recording of this. Last week we were at a ribbon cutting of a new college opened up at the Ajax GO station, and they're providing training. This is very important, and training for PSW students. All you need is a high school diploma, high school qualifications or equivalent, and they will train you. They have vacancies for almost up to 100 students left. They will train you for, I think, 18 weeks and then put you in a 10-week placement right here in Durham region, and you can receive a stipend up to about $5,000 for that period of time. So 100 jobs available. Anybody interested, I think you can reach out to any one of us on council and we can direct you to the right people. So anybody listening, please, it's a good opportunity for our residents, and you will be placed in Durham region. After that, you'll be qualified as a PSW and you can get a job pretty much anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Now we'll do the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Khan, second by Councillor Tyler Morin. That the bylaw number 51-2022 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its meeting held on June 20th, 2022 be read a first, second, third time and passed. Those in favor of the confirming bylaw? That is carried. And finally, moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Bauer, that the June 20th, 2022 meeting of the Council of the Town of Ajax be adjourned. Those in favor? Unanimous. That is carried. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, staff.
Good job, Mayor.
Thank you, everyone.
Great.